Chapter 1. In a small tavern called Uli Restaurant, at the entrance of Chong and East City, Zhang Feng sent off the last batch of customers in the tavern. Looking at the dazzling sunlight in the sky, a complicated look flashed across his eyes. Half a year. It's been half a year. Damn the system, why hasn't it been activated yet? While talking, Zhang Feng returned to the empty tavern again. He sat on the counter in a daze. Half a year ago, he time-traveled to Chong'an City in the second year of Zhengguan in the Tang dynasty, and inherited a small tavern. He originally thought that with his understanding of the history of the Tang dynasty, he could make a great achievement in the early Tang dynasty. Even if he couldn't, he could have a lot of wives and concubines and make a meteoric rise. But he didn't expect that when he was about to sell the tavern and travel to the Tang dynasty, a system prompt sounded in his mind. It reminded him that the system would be activated in 270 days. 9 months. In the end, after considering all kinds of reasons, Zhang Feng gritted his teeth and decided to wait for the system to be activated in the tavern. He was looking forward to what kind of amazing reward he would get after the system was activated. And if he had the system, it would be a great help for him to travel to the Tang dynasty. Boss. Just when Zhang Feng was thinking about random things, 2 middle-aged businessmen in luxurious clothes and square headscarves appeared at the entrance of the tavern. As soon as they entered the door, the leading middle-aged man smiled and cupped his fists at Zhang Feng. And Zhang Feng was immediately energized when he heard the voice. Yo, Lao Li? Lao Chen? What are you going to eat today? Zhang Feng knew these 2 people. They were businessmen in the Tang dynasty. Because of their business, they had been doing business in Chong'an City for half a year. When Zhang Feng decided to wait for the system, Zhang Feng tinkered with the half-dead tavern and studied several modern dishes and snacks that could be made in this era. And Lao Li, every few days, would bring Lao Chen or other businessman friends to visit. In addition, he was generous. Every time he was satisfied with the food, he would wave his hand and leave some tips for Zhang Feng. After a few times, he naturally became familiar with Zhang Feng. Lao Li, who was wearing a purple robe, said with a smile, "Aren't we craving for this? Old rules, old rules. With your cooking, we'll like any dish you make." Okay. Zhang Feng slightly clasped his fist and said, "Then please, I'll be back soon." While talking, Zhang Feng went into the kitchen. Smelling the fragrance overflowing from the kitchen curtain, Lao Li and Lao Chen looked at each other, and then found a random compartment to sit down and talk in a low voice. After a while, Zhang Feng walked out of the kitchen with a large tray in his hand. After all, they were all home-cooked dishes, plus many things were prepared in advance, so it didn't take much time. And Lao Li and Lao Chen's eyes were also attracted by the bright colors in Zhang Feng's hands at this moment. Smelling the rich fragrance in the air, Lao Li and Lao Chen's eyes instantly lit up. When the last dish was placed on the table, Lao Li couldn't wait to pick up a piece of braised pig intestine and eat it directly without caring about the heat. "I say, shopkeeper, where did you learn this skill?" "I, Lao Li, have been doing business all these years. Even if I can't eat all the delicacies around the Tang dynasty, I can still think that I've eaten a lot of local specialties. But why is it that after eating your dishes and seeing other dishes, he suddenly doesn't like them?" While talking, Lao Li glared at Lao Chen, who was engrossed in eating, and didn't care about etiquette. He grabbed a piece of braised pork ribs and gnawed, and said vaguely while eating, "To be honest, since eating your dishes, I feel very uncomfortable every time it's mealtime. Tell me, is this a kind of fate?" While talking, Lao Li ate again. Zhang Feng just smiled at Lao Li's praise. These were the gourmet culture that had been passed down for thousands of years in Huaxia. Although the Tang dynasty was vast, there weren't many cooking skills and seasonings. To be able to make these things, Zhang Feng dared to guarantee that other than him, there was no one else who could do it. Thinking about it, Zhang Feng thought of the dam system again. He couldn't help but imagine the benefits of the system after it was activated in a few months. "Boss, come on, I'll borrow your wine and treat you to a drink." While talking, Lao Li wiped his greasy hands, picked up the wine jar, and poured a bowl of wine for Zhang Feng. "Okay. Then I'll do as you say." Zhang Feng made a fist and palm salute and agreed. Basically, Old Li would encounter such a situation every time he came over for a meal. Basically, Old Li would ask some strange questions as soon as he poured the wine. For example, "What do you think of the structure of the Tang dynasty?" Is there anything lacking in the security management of the Tang dynasty? How is the business of the hotel? Or if the lives of the people should be changed, how to change, and so on. For a time, Zhang Feng thought that the two of them were plainclothes officials who came to observe the situation of the people. How could a mountain man ask such questions? However, considering how generous Lao Li was, and more importantly, Zhang Feng was too bored. He was happy to have someone to brag about. Zhang Feng casually sat opposite Lao Li, picked up his bowl, and clinked it with Lao Li. He asked, "What do you want to talk about this time? Is it astronomy, geography, or people's livelihood?" Lao Li and Old Chen looked at each other. Lao Li leaned forward a little with a wine bowl in his hand. "Boss, we want to talk about something special this time. How about it? When have you ever talked about anything special?" Zhang Feng nodded speechlessly. "Then let's hear it." Lao Li seemed to be even more nervous. He lowered his voice and asked, "What do you think of the change in the Black Tortoise Gate?" Chapter 2. Zhang Feng was a little confused. What kind of businessman was this? Were the customs of the Tang dynasty so liberal? Or were the thoughts of the businessmen of the Tang dynasty so jumpy? If people knew about this, although they would not be killed, they would inevitably go to jail. What the hell? Zhang Feng looked at the two men and thought for a while. Finally, he shook his head and said, "I can't say it, I can't say it." Lao Li seemed to have a hunch. He smiled and said, "Shopkeeper, what's the harm in saying it?" As he spoke, Lao Li's face turned serious. "Do you think that I, Lao Li, will go to the yamen to sue you?" "Brother Zhang, just say it. Anyway, it's just a drunken conversation. We just want to hear your different opinions. Do you still treat us as outsiders?" Lao Chen took the opportunity to persuade him. Zhang Feng was a little speechless. However, after thinking about it carefully, it was not something that he could not say. In the end, Zhang Feng raised his neck and drank a bowl of wine. He smacked his lips and said, "It's not that I can't say it, but this." "How about this?" Zhang Feng thought for a while and finally said in a low voice, "The coup of the Black Tortoise Gate." Zhang Feng's thoughts slowly drifted into his memories. After a while he said, "The plan was meticulous, perfect, and exquisite. It could be said to be the most successful coup in history. No other." At the same time, it was also the beginning of the prosperity of the Tang dynasty. The ambition for hegemony was based on the arrow that killed that person. Although Zhang Feng did not say who that person was, the two men here understood immediately. Lao Li asked with a burning gaze, "And then? What do you think of him?" Zhang Feng drank another bowl of wine. Lao Li was trembling all over as he poured another bowl of wine for him. Due to his excitement, a large amount of wine spilled onto the floor. Looking at the sunlight outside the window, Zhang Feng clasped his hands behind his back and said, "In general, a coup d'etat will cause a lot of killing, or it will involve a lot of people. There have even been cases of countries being destroyed because of this in history. But Li Shimin is different. In the Black Tortoise Gate incident, Qin King Li Shimin killed 3 birds with 1 stone, eliminating the emperor, the crown prince, and King Qi in one go. Among them, every force is much stronger than Li Shimin. But let's destroy them together." King of Qin, Li Shimin, only brought a few hundred men with him. Only a truly wise man could come up with such a perfect plan. The coup d'etat was also the most successful coup d'etat with the fewest sacrifices in history. Lao Li was so excited that his whole body was trembling. If it wasn't for Old Chen holding him down, Lao Li might have started talking with Zhang Feng. As for these, Old Chen was also trembling all over. His chest was heaving up and down violently. And Zhang Feng didn't see any of this. He said again, "But he's not a good person." In an instant, Lao Li and Old Chen were both stunned. Even that. Old Chen clenched his fists at this moment. Lao Li took a deep breath and glared at Old Chen. After a moment, Lao Li forcibly suppressed the doubts in his heart and asked, "Why did the shopkeeper say that the current emperor is not a good person?" Zhang Feng smiled faintly. "Killing his brother to usurp the throne, is he a good person?" This. Lao Li was shocked. But. Right at this moment, Zhang Feng's tone suddenly changed, and a wisp of excitement shot out from his eyes. He said word by word, "Li Shimin is indeed not a good person, but he is a good emperor. After the current emperor took the throne, He spared no effort to make the Tang dynasty go through the chaos of war in the shortest time possible and enter a prosperous period of full recovery. And he is the only one who dares to face the criticism and suggestions of the officials directly. I can only think of 4 words for such a demeanor. After a moment of thinking, Zhang Feng said 4 words word by word. The Emperor of all ages. Lao Li's eyes couldn't help but suddenly brighten. Not a good person. A good emperor. And the Emperor of all ages. Ha ha ha. Good, good. Listening to you is better than reading for 10 years. The Emperor of all ages. Ha ha. Lao Li patted Zhang Feng's shoulder excitedly. Not knowing whether it was because he was drunk or something else, his face was flushed at this time. So was Lao Chen. After a moment, Lao Li suppressed the excitement in his heart and asked, I just don't know if what you said is true? Zhang Feng spread his hands speechlessly. Isn't this nonsense? Who can I say it to here? There are only the 3 of us here. I'm just interested to tell you what's in my heart. Do I have to lie here? Lao Li's face was flushed with excitement. If the current emperor knows what you said, he will definitely be very happy. While speaking, Lao Li stood up. He took out a gold ingot from his arms and put it in Zhang Feng's hand. Shopkeeper, you said it very clearly today. I'm also very happy to hear it. This is the money for today's meal. Zhang Feng cupped his hands and looked at the 2 people who were leaving. He cupped his hands and said, Take care. It was also because of this shiny thing that Zhang Feng was interested in arguing with them. Moreover, this Li Shimin was indeed the emperor he admired the most. Most importantly, he also had to eat. Chapter 3. The moment Lao Li walked out of the tavern, the warm smile on his face slowly disappeared, and a dignified aura was born. Old Chen, who was following closely behind, also bowed slightly at this moment, like a servant, and followed closely behind. After the 2 turned into the alley behind the tavern, a large number of vendors in linen shirts, or passers-by, slowly appeared beside the 2 people, clustered around them and quickly left. Lao Li looked ahead and asked lightly, Minister Cheng, what do you think of Zhang Feng? What he said just now, was it really from the bottom of his heart? Your Majesty, this little shopkeeper Zhang Feng is an honest person. What he said just now, through observing his expression and tone, was indeed from the bottom of his heart. In his heart, Your Majesty is indeed the Emperor of the ages. While talking, Lao Li got into an extremely luxurious carriage, and hurriedly left, surrounded by a large number of people. Lao Li and Old Chen just now were the Emperor of the Tang dynasty, Li Shimin, and the Duke of Lu, Chang Yaojin. Half a year ago, Li Shimin, who was extremely annoyed by the matter of the Wei River alliance, sneaked out of the palace, and wanted to find a stranger to vent his frustrations. He accidentally entered this little tavern. Then, he was attracted by Zhang Feng's food, so he changed his name to Lao Li. Every few days, he would come here to sit, eat, and talk about some current issues. Gradually, he became familiar with Zhang Feng. However, Zhang Feng didn't dare to think that Li Shimin could go to his restaurant to eat, and he had never found out anything about it. In the sedan, when there was no one else, the smile on Li Shimin's face never disappeared. Every comment from Zhang Feng was like a heavy hammer, and at this time, it did not dissipate in his mind for a long time. Especially that sentence, the Emperor of the Ages. This title, Li Shimin did not even dare to think about. If it was someone else who said this sentence, Li Shimin could only laugh it off. But Zhang Feng was not the same. In just half a year of contact, Li Shimin thought that he understood Zhang Feng very well. Although Zhang Feng was a little young, he was very smart, and there were not many people who were worthy of his praise. But he did not expect that today, he would have such an evaluation of him. Since he ascended the throne. Although those officials praised him and sang his praises everywhere, Li Shimin knew that Li Shiqiang was not the only one. Apart from the few old fellows around him, the only ones who spoke the truth and truly agreed with him were those who didn't care about him. Although these people were smiling all day long, who knew if they were cursing in their hearts? However, he, Li Shimin, did not care about this. He knew what he would have to bear and what he would have to endure on this path. Previously, Zhang Feng's answers to Li Shimin's questions were always normal, but this time, Zhang Feng showed a different side. This could be seen from the tone of Zhang Feng's conversation. Zhang Feng did not flatter him at all, because he did not know that he was Li Shimin, the emperor. Li Shimin could not help but sigh. The one who understands me is Zhang Feng. Yao Jin, accompany me out of the palace again tomorrow. Outside the sedan, Cheng Yaojin heard and immediately replied. This old official obeys. Chen Yaojin could not help but turn around and look at the East Market behind him. He smacked his lips and muttered, "What a lucky lad." The next day. In the afternoon, Li Shimin and Chang Yaojin once again appeared in front of ULI restaurant. Behind them, there were only a few people in the East Market, but at this time, a large number of Jinwu guards dressed in casual clothes, disguised as ordinary people, had swarmed into the restaurant. Zhang Feng, as usual, was lying on the counter and taking a nap. As Li Shimin and Chang Yaojin appeared in Zhang Feng's line of sight, Zhang Feng was first stunned, then said in surprise, "Oh, old Li, old Chen. I was wondering why the magpies at the door were chirping non-stop today. It turns out that the two of you have graced us with your presence. It's rare for me to see you guys so free." Li Shimin laughed. "It's because the food you cook is too fragrant. The food at home is like chaff, hard to swallow. There's nothing I can do about it." Hearing this, Zhang Feng cupped his fists and smiled mysteriously. "You're in for a treat today. Last night, I had nothing to do, so I secretly went to the river to catch some crabs. What a coincidence. The grapes you sent last time have been brewed into wine, and it just happened to come out of the oven." Hearing this, Li Shimin's eyes lit up. He was full of admiration for Zhang Feng's culinary skills, but these crabs were all shells. How could they be eaten? What he looked forward to the most was the wine Zhang Feng mentioned. Before, Zhang Feng had been complaining that the wine of the Tang dynasty was too bland. Even when Li Shimin brought the wine from the imperial cellar, he didn't get a word of praise from Zhang Feng. But now, he actually brewed wine himself? Li Shimin couldn't help but look forward to it. "I've eaten the food personally cooked by the manager, but I didn't know that the manager knows how to brew wine. No matter what, I have to drink a few jars today." Chapter 4. Zhang Feng didn't say much after hearing that. He turned around and went into the cellar. After a while, Zhang Feng came out of the cellar with a strong aroma of wine. He was holding a bowl-sized wine jar in his arms. The moment Zhang Feng placed the exquisite wine jar on the table, Zhang Feng's expression changed. Li Shimin and Chang Yaojin's eyes didn't leave it at all. This wine was too fragrant. Although they didn't drink it, the strong aroma of the wine already made the two of them drool. Zhang Feng put down the wine jar and smiled. "Well, you guys drink first. I'll get some dishes." Li Shimin stared at the wine jar, rubbed his hands, and swallowed his saliva. The wine smelled so fragrant. Compared to the imperial wine offered by Tubo and other countries in the imperial palace, the wine tasted even richer. How would it taste after drinking it? Not to mention the crab that they hadn't eaten yet. Good, good, good. I'm happy today. Make a few more dishes. Today, Laoli will treat you to a drink. Zhang Feng heard that and made a fist salute again. He had to try the crab and the first jar of wine brewed in the Tang dynasty. He had been craving it for a long time. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone to catch the crab in the middle of the night last night. After half a year, he finally brewed the first jar of wine. How could he not drink it? Not long after, Zhang Feng brought out 12 dishes of different sizes. Zhang Feng didn't stand on ceremony with Li Shimin and the other man. He sat down in front of Li Shimin, grabbed a crab with a scary color, and started chewing it. Then, he picked up a bowl of wine from the other side and took a big gulp. Li Shimin and Chang Yaojin looked at the deep-fried crab and then at Zhang Feng. Their eyes were fixed. Li Shimin saw this and copied Zhang Feng. He picked up the crab and tasted it slowly. Then, he picked up the wine glass and took a big gulp. However, the next moment, Li Shimin's face turned red. He couldn't help coughing violently. Cough, cough, cough. "I say, shopkeeper, your wine is really good. It's very sweet, but why is it so strong? It's stronger than the foreign wine I've drunk. However, the wine tastes really good." Zhang Feng smiled. He picked up the bowl and gestured to Li Shimin and Li Chia. Then, he took a sip and said, "Although the wine is sweet and strong, the taste of the wine locks the fragrance of the grapes. After entering the throat, it is smooth and comfortable. Do you too like it?" "Yes, no doubt." Li Shimin and Chang Yaojin clinked glasses with Zhang Feng. Then, They imitated Zhang Feng and drank slowly. The more they sipped, the more Li Shimin and Cheng Yaojin couldn't stop. After a while, Cheng Yaojin coughed softly. Li Shimin put down the bowl reluctantly and asked, "Shopkeeper, actually, there's something I don't understand." Zhang Feng gestured. Li Shimin continued, "With your skills, if you advertise a little, you'll definitely make a lot of money. Why do you? If you need, do you want us to help you? In this way, in less than 3 years, there will be a place for you in Chang'an City." Cheng Yaojin, who had been silent, heard this and his eyelids couldn't help but twitch. This was the reward for Zhang Feng saying that he was the emperor of all ages. The emperor was going to reward Zhang Feng. However, Zhang Feng heard this and shook his head slightly. "Forget it, I have my own plans. Opening this shop is only a temporary plan." This, Li Shimin and Cheng Yaojin looked at each other. Cheng Yaojin asked, "So, what's your plan, shopkeeper? Can you tell us?" Zhang Feng sighed softly. If it weren't for the damned system, he wouldn't have to do this. If you have the ambition of a swan, how can you live in a sparrow's nest? Hearing this, Li Shimin was a little surprised. He had underestimated this Zhang Feng. From his previous conversation, he had indeed felt that Zhang Feng was not ordinary. Although he knew that this small tavern couldn't trap Zhang Feng, wasn't it a little exaggerated for him to compare himself to a swan? Since you compare yourself to a swan, how about I, Lao Li, take advantage of the wine and test you? Zhang Feng raised his wine bowl slightly and motioned for Li Shimin to continue. Li Shimin thought for a moment and asked, "What do you think of the current state of the world?" In the originally empty tavern. Because of Li Shimin's words, the tavern fell into a dead silence. Zhang Feng couldn't help but twitch his eyelids. What the hell was going on? Yesterday, they were talking about the Black Tortoise sect. Today, they were talking about the state of the world? Was this something that a small commoner could discuss? "Old Li, are you part of the royal family's advisory team?" Cheng Yaojin, who was next to him, was also anxious at this time. He kept nudging Li Shimin with the tip of his foot. "Your Majesty, you must have drunk too much. Otherwise, how could you ask such a thing?" Li Shimin looked at Zhang Feng's strange look and Cheng Yaojin's little movements. He rubbed his nose. "I'm just saying. After all, the state of the world is very affected for merchants like us who travel north and south. If something goes wrong, the first unlucky ones will be us." Zhang Feng nodded indifferently. After thinking for a moment he said, "In the near future, there will be a disaster in Longyu Road." Chapter 5. Longyu Road would face a once-in-a-century natural disaster? How could this be possible? Bang! There was a crisp sound. The wine bowl in Li Shimin's hand fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. Not only that, the wine bowl in Cheng Yaojin's hand was shaking violently. Longyu Road was related to the west gate of the Tang dynasty. How could there be a natural disaster here? And a once-in-a-century natural disaster? Hearing the shattering sound, Li Shimin forced himself to suppress the shock in his heart. He coughed and said, "I'm sorry. Your news made me lose control of my emotions." Zhang Feng suddenly understood. He got up speechlessly and took another bowl from the counter. The moment Zhang Feng turned around, Li Shimin and Cheng Yaojin couldn't help but look at each other in horror. This matter. None of them knew. What did this mean? And how did a small shopkeeper in Chang'an City know about this matter? Usually, unless he was buying ingredients, he would stay in the store and not take a step out. How did he know? Looking at Zhang Feng, who returned, the two of them forced themselves to suppress the shock in their hearts. "Shopkeeper, how did you know that there would be a disaster in Longyu Road?" "Longyu Road is our main trade route and it concerns our survival." "It's a little." Zhang Feng handed the wine bowl to Li Shimin and refilled it as he asked in confusion. "Both of you are businessmen. Don't you know if there's a sudden increase in the price of anything in the market recently? By the way, Lao Li, didn't I hear that your caravan was going to Tuyuhun last time? Didn't you notice anything on the way?" Zhang Feng looked suspiciously at the two dumbfounded people and was speechless. Where did this immortal businessman come from? When he was free, he would ask them all kinds of questions. He thought they knew everything. How did they know nothing? Didn't they say that businessmen were all alert and observant? Were the businessmen of the Tang dynasty too arrogant or just lazy? And Zhang Feng's words directly stunned Li Shimin. I have heard that there has been no rain in Longyu Dao recently, and there seems to be a great drought. However, this can't be a once-in-a-century natural disaster, right? Li Shimin asked, unable to suppress the doubts in his heart. Zhang Feng took a sip of wine and pointed to the kitchen door. Don't you care about the price of food? What kind of place is Longyu Dao? That's the only way to connect the Tang dynasty and the western regions. I think you should know better than me what kind of cash crops are produced on that road, right? Just a few days ago, the price of Longyu's crops suddenly skyrocketed, and the quantity also decreased sharply. Recently, there have been more and more people coming from Longyu. Don't you know? Li Shimin was stunned. Chang Yaojin took over. Manager, aren't you a little alarmist? I know about the drought, but I can't be sure from this point. The drought in Longyu Dao. Then, what if this drought is not an ordinary one, but the kind that only happens once in a century? Zhang Feng interrupted Chang Yaojin and said. Chang Yaojin smacked his lips and secretly glanced at Li Shimin, whose face was a little pale. This is nothing. We heard that the emperor has already made arrangements for this. He has allocated water resources and relief for the victims. Zhang Feng shook his head. It's useless. This is just a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. What month is it now? April. The drought has just begun, and we can still deal with it. But what if it continues for 3 more months? Can the current emperor still hold on? What if this drought is far from as simple as you think? How will the emperor deal with it? How will the Tang dynasty deal with it? Zhang Feng said word by word. Not only Longyu Dao, but the entire Tubo and Tuyuhan are affected by this drought. This? Li Shimin was shocked. Shopkeeper, isn't this a little shocking? If this... Shocking. Zhang Feng laughed. Do you know that if the drought continues for a month in Longyu Dao, I can guarantee that thousands of miles of land will be barren, and not even a blade of grass will grow? What? This is impossible. This is just a drought. How can it be like this? Li Shimin was shocked. This time, he was really shocked by Zhang Feng's words. He did know about the drought in Longyu Dao, but he never thought that it would be like what Zhang Feng said. But, at this moment, Zhang Feng picked up the bowl of wine, drank it and said, Then, what if there is a plague of locusts accompanying the drought? A plague of locusts? Impossible. How can there be a plague of locusts in Longyu Dao? This is just an ordinary drought. Shopkeeper, are you drunk? Zhang Feng shook his head and said, Longyu Dao is already dry, and there are a lot of locusts in dry places. If there is a drought like this, all the locusts' eggs will no longer be suppressed and will reproduce in large numbers. The natural conditions of Longyu Dao will become a natural hatchery. When the time comes, locusts will break out of the ground and cover the sky. At that time, the locusts will compete with the people for food and grass roots and book covers. Can you imagine the scene? Li Shimin's face could not help but turn pale. Even his whole body could not help but tremble. Locusts! Locusts that blotted out the sky! Could this be true? At this moment, Zhang Feng did not say anything. However, Li Shimin and Chang Yaojin could also imagine such an apocalyptic scene. At this time, the Tang dynasty had just entered the stage of recuperation. This year, the agriculture of the Tang dynasty had just recovered. Longyu Dao was one of the main food production areas of the Tang dynasty. If locusts broke out at this time, the consequences would be unimaginable. At that time, drops of cold sweat flowed down Li Shimin's cheeks and dripped into the bowl of wine. However, Zhang Feng did not notice any of this. He continued to speak slowly. This is just the beginning. What if there is a plague of locusts in Tubo and Tuyuhan at the same time? Chapter 6. Chang Yaojin, who was drinking, could not help but spit out his drink. His eyes widened in shock as he asked, What did you say? Tubo, Tuyuhan, and Tujue are experiencing a drought? Li Shimin was also shocked. Impossible. How is this possible? However, the next moment, Li Shimin suddenly remembered a memorial from half a month ago. According to the memorial, the Tang dynasty's spies in Tubo and Tuyuhan suddenly lost contact with the Tang dynasty at the same time. In the end, the spies sent by the Tang dynasty were all blocked outside Tubo and Tuyuhun's gates. Zhang Feng spoke freely, not noticing the shock on Li Shimin and Cheng Yaojin's faces. You've underestimated this drought. Let me ask you, haven't you noticed that the number of merchants in Tubo and Tuyuhun has decreased by a lot? What does this mean? Instantly, Li Shimin felt a deep sense of helplessness. If there was really a locust plague in Longyu, the Tang dynasty might be able to deal with it. However, what about Tubo and Tuyuhun? Then, the Tang dynasty, which had just stabilized, would be in a precarious situation again. Li Shimin suddenly had a bad feeling. He hurriedly asked, I remember something. Half a month ago, when our caravan went to Tubo, we were stopped and returned empty-handed. As for the reason, we don't know. Could it be? Zhang Feng snapped his fingers. That's right, but you're also wrong. At this time, Tubo and Tuyuhun can't even take care of themselves. The same goes for the Tujue. Li Shimin was completely flustered. I've also heard that a large number of Tujue cavalry appeared at the northern border. Could it be that there's also a drought in Tujue territory? Or did something happen and they're blocking the news? Zhang Feng looked at the pale-faced Li Shimin, a trace of doubt flashing in his eyes. Tubo and Tubo are neighbors to Longyu Dao. Their soil and water are similar. Longyu Dao is suffering from drought. Do you think Tubo and Tuyuhun will be able to escape? Boom! Li Shimin couldn't help but feel dizzy. Tubo and Tuyuhun are also suffering from drought? If what Zhang Feng said was true, then when the locust plague spread, the consequences would be a once-in-a-century natural disaster. In the face of such a disaster, if the Tujue and Tubo had other ideas, the Tang dynasty would not be able to stop them even if they wanted to. At this moment he finally understood. Why was it that none of the spies he had sent out had returned? Even those who had entered the Turkic Khaganate had disappeared without a trace. It turned out that the Turks were also sealing off the news. Li Shimin slapped his forehead. No wonder. No wonder my caravan was blocked outside the gates. They're sealing off the news. At this moment, Li Shimin could no longer sit still. However, he still forced himself to hold it in. He cupped his fist and asked with a serious expression, Manager, are you sure about this? Zhang Feng, on the other hand, seemed to be scaring him to death. Since ancient times, drought and flood have been closely related. When there's a drought, there's a flood. There's no abnormality in the south, and the prices of the crops in the south have not increased. What does this mean? This means that there's no disaster in the south. How many months is it now? It's April now? Then the north is still cold, and the drought is impossible. However, you also said that there's a sudden increase of troops at the border. What does this mean? What does this mean? Li Shimin was dumbfounded. He was completely dumbfounded. Drought and flood. It was indeed as Zhang Feng said. Now there was a drought. What about the flood? Where was it? Shopkeeper, isn't what you're saying a little too frightening? You know where the flood and waterlogging disaster will happen? Lao Li knows me best. Zhang Feng said mysteriously, You're right, but this time it's not a flood, it's a snow disaster. The Turks have encountered the most severe snow disaster in history. What? F***CK. Oh my God. The heavens have finally opened their eyes. Cheng Yaojin almost shouted out Your Majesty. But in the end, he forced himself to stop. Manager, are you sure that there's a snow disaster in the Turks? Isn't this? Don't be too happy. Just treat this as a gimmick. It's enough that the three of us know about it. If this gets out, even if I don't die, I'll lose a layer of skin. The worst thing that can happen is that the Turks and Tubo Tuyuhuns will invade the south. Invade the south? Buzz. At this time, Li Shimin had already fallen into shock. But the next moment, Li Shimin asked anxiously, Isn't what you're saying a little too much? According to what you said, why would they block the news? Zhang Feng shook his head speechlessly. If you were Li Shimin, if you knew that the Turks were suffering, what would you do? Li Shimin was stunned. Of course, I would send troops, take advantage of their weakness, and... That's right. Zhang Feng snapped his fingers. If you can think of it, how can Tuli Khan and Li Shimin not think of it? Now, you should understand why there are so many Turks at the border, and why Tubo and Tuyuhuns are acting so strangely, right? They're guarding against the Tang dynasty. Chung Yao-jin could not help but scratch his head. Manager, you don't leave the house. And Chang'an is more than 1,000 miles away from the north. How did you know all this? Zhang Feng smiled mysteriously. I calculated it. Bang! Li Shimin, who had been waiting for an answer, was stunned when he heard the answer. The wine bowl in his hand fell to the floor again. Chapter 7. Zhang Feng was a little speechless. Isn't it just a story? I say, old Li, is there a need for you to be so surprised? Fine. One of my cups is gone again. Li Shimin said in a hoarse voice. It's okay, it's okay. It's just a cup. I don't lack money. But, shopkeeper, is your news reliable? Zhang Feng shook his head. He took out a bottle of ordinary wine from the counter and said, Actually, if you observe carefully when you are traveling, you will naturally notice it. Or when your caravan passes by Longyu Road, you can find a place to dig a few holes and see the number of insect eggs in the ground. Then you will know. However, this is just a topic for the three of us to talk about. It's okay to talk about it, but please don't spread it. If this is spread out, it will be a discussion about the imperial court. Then it will not end well. Li Shimin and Chang Yaojin both nodded. However, the two of them were still unable to calm down. If this was just a topic for drinking, it would be fine. But what if it was true? Moreover, they knew some inside information. How could it be false? Longyu Road was related to the west gate of the Tang dynasty. If there was no locust plague here, it would be easy to deal with. But what if there was a locust plague? What should they do? They really had to think about this matter carefully. If Tuyuhan and Tubo and the Turks were really suffering from natural disasters, then there would be a lot to write about this matter. Thinking of this, how could Li Shimin still have the mood to drink? He took out a banknote of 100 taels and put it on the table. Then he clasped his hands and said, Shopkeeper, I have a good time drinking today. But this matter is too big and affects many of my businesses. I have to go back. Let's talk another day. Okay. Next time, I will treat you to good wine. Really good wine. But you don't have to worry too much. His Majesty is wise. How can he not have a solution? While they were talking, Zhang Feng put the banknote to his nose and sniffed it happily. Then, he put it into his pocket like a miser. Longyu Dao, Tubo, Tuyuhan Great Drought. There would be a plague of locusts in the near future. The Turkic Khaganate suffered a rare snow disaster. The border was going to be in chaos. All of this was like a huge rock that pressed down on his heart, causing him to not dare to delay for even a moment. Walking out of the tavern, Li Shimin's face was so gloomy that it looked like water was about to drip out. Yao Jin, how credible do you think the two things that the shopkeeper said today are? Chung Yao Jin scratched his head. Replying to your Majesty, this old subject is slow-witted. If it was anyone else who said that, this old subject would definitely chop him up with an axe and punish him for deceiving the emperor. However, this shopkeeper Zhang Jr. seems to be a little strange. It's impossible for him to observe all of this from the stone well. Furthermore, how could a commoner like him know about what happened at the northern border? This old official feels that we should wait and see. After contemplating for a while, Chang Yaojin spoke again. This old subject does not dare to deny his words. Sigh. I also do not dare to make wild guesses. Let's hope that this is just a topic of conversation. As he finished speaking, Li Shimin sat on the sedan chair, and everyone hurried back to the imperial palace. When the sedan chair was about to reach the gates of the imperial palace, Li Shimin, who was deep in thought with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes and said sternly, Cheng Yaojin, listen to the decree. This old subject receives the decree. Bring my personal decree and investigate. I order you to investigate this matter personally. Mobilize all forces at all costs. I want to know in the shortest time possible whether the Turkic Khaganate in the north is really suffering from the snow disaster. Mobilize all resources, regardless of whether you bribe them with money or coerce them. You must break the blockade of the Turkic Khaganate, Tuyuhan, and Tubo and bring me back real news. Send someone to Longyu Road and dig up the ground inch by inch. I want to know what is underneath Longyu Road. Li Shimin clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked, but his face was extremely calm. He said word by word, Remember I said at all costs. Cheng Yaojin clasped his fist and said, "This subject obeys the decree." After that, Cheng Yaojin did not have time to return to Chang'an City. He hurriedly issued orders as he snatched a horse from the hand of a general who had just walked out of the imperial palace and left in a flash. Li Shimin looked at Cheng Yaojin who left, then looked at the sky above the imperial palace and let out a long sigh. To resist foreign aggression, we must first stabilize our internal affairs. There is no room for error in the affairs of the country. I would rather believe it to be true than not. At this time, the Tang dynasty had just entered the stage of recuperation. If there was an accident at this time and the Western Gate was lost, then I would be ashamed to face the people of the world in this land. What Zhang Feng did not expect was that his words would set off a huge wave in the imperial palace and the entire Chang'an city. Even the Tang emperor sent out all the secret agents who had been buried in Tubo and other countries for a long time because of his words. At this time, he happily closed the door of his shop, hugged the banknotes and ingots of gold, and entered a dream. Chapter 8. 5 days later. In front of the Vermilion Bird Gate in Chang'an City, a group of travel-worn horses galloped on the streets of Chang'an City. "Get out of the way! Urgent report from the border. Open the city gate." As he spoke, the leader of the soldiers waved a bright yellow chess card in his hand and roared. The imperial guards guarding the imperial city gate were shocked when they saw the flag. They hurriedly dispersed all the people in front of the Vermilion Bird Gate. Even the little maids who were lining up to enter the imperial city hurriedly got out of the way when they saw the flag. When the cavalry entered the Vermilion Bird Gate, a group of Jinwu guards took the lead and held a gong high, riding fast horses to clear the way. Bang! 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 Urgent report from the border. All officials retreat. At this time, Li Shimin was in the study of Taiji Palace, pacing back and forth anxiously with his hands behind his back. In his study, Zhang Sun Wuji looked solemnly at the secret letters on Li Shimin's desk. It had been 5 days. Logically speaking, at this time, he should have found out everything that could be found. But why was there still no news? He couldn't help but panic. In his heart, he was getting more and more anxious. It was because what Zhang Feng said was too sensational, and Li Shimin really smelled a trace of something unusual from it. Although he had reached an agreement with the Turks at Wei River and reached a temporary peace with them, if the Turks knew that the Long Yu Road of the Tang dynasty was affected by the disaster, the agreement would collapse in an instant. In Li Shimin's mind, Zhang Feng's appearance and all the previous words appeared again. After a moment of silence, Li Shimin, whose eyes were bloodshot, turned and asked, "Wuji, do you think there is a god in this world?" Cheng Yaojin, who was standing by the side, heard this and shook his head slightly. "Your Majesty, don't be so anxious. Whether things are as little brother Zhang said is still unknown. Let's wait for a while. Old Cheng should be able to send back accurate information in 2 days." However, at this time, before Zhang Sun Wuji could finish his words, a hurried shout came from the entrance of Taiji Palace. "Reporting to Your Majesty. Urgent report from the border." Hearing this, Li Shimin abruptly turned around and personally opened the door. A sand-covered soldier knelt at the entrance of Taiji Palace on one knee. Li Shimin opened the door personally. The soldier was so excited that his entire body was trembling. He took out a letter from his bosom and held it high above his head. Li Shimin couldn't be bothered to say anything else. He took a deep breath, took the letter from the soldier's hand, and hurriedly skimmed through it. After 3 breaths, Li Shimin's body began to tremble violently. "Your Majesty, what happened to you?" Seeing this, Zhang Sun Wuji turned pale with fright and hurried forward. Li Shimin waved his hand, indicating that he was fine. Then, he handed the letter to Zhang Sun Wuji. Zhang Sun Wuji took the letter and skimmed through it. However, in the next moment, his eyelids twitched violently. On the letter, he saw the following words. "Near the Turkic royal city of Iron Mountain, heavy snow has been falling continuously for 2 months. Countless cattle and sheep have frozen to death. Tuyuhun has been suffering from drought for a year. Thousands of miles of land have been barren. Weeds and books have been gnawed away. Tubo's Tianshan River has dried up. There is a lack of food harvests. Countless people have starved to death." Looking at the letter written by Cheng Yaojin personally, Zhang Sun Wuji's face darkened. Although he had never met the mysterious shop owner, he had heard of him recently. He also saw the reports on Li Shimin's desk. At this moment, Zhang Sun Wuji was also shocked. After reading the letter a few more times, he picked up the axe signature that Chang Yaojin had drawn on the memorial. Zhang Sun Wuji was shocked. There was not much in the letter. However, every word indicated that what Zhang Feng had said was true. How could this be? Is old Cheng's report accurate? After a while, Li Shimin asked in a serious tone. Zhang Sun Wuji took a deep breath. Your Majesty, this is indeed old Cheng's handwritten letter. No one in the world can imitate his style of writing while drawing. Therefore, I believe that the report is accurate. Li Shimin rubbed his forehead. He looked at the soldiers at the door and waved his hand. Men, reward them with 100 taels of silver. However, remember, no one is allowed to speak of what happened today. The soldiers swore an oath and left in a hurry. Zhang Sun Wuji closed the door. Li Shimin sat on the chair like a deflated balloon. He smiled bitterly and said, I thought that I had seen countless people. However, I didn't know that there was a talent that the heavens had given to me from the Tang dynasty. Zhang Sun Wuji's eyelids twitched when he heard this. Your Majesty, I still don't understand. Logically speaking, how could a small citizen in Chang'an City know about the Turkic snow disaster thousands of miles away? Moreover, from a small drought, how could he know that Tubo and Tuyuhan had encountered the same disaster? Li Shimin smiled bitterly and rubbed his forehead. I also want to know what you want to know. I just don't know if Long Yu Dao. At this moment, Chang Yaojin's loud voice appeared at the door of Taiji Palace. Your Majesty! Your Majesty! Urgent report! Urgent report from Long Yu Dao. Chapter 9. Your Majesty, this is bad. Long Yu Dao. Drought. Chang Yaojin entered Taiji Palace, panting. When the voice died down, Li Shimin's eyes flashed with a trace of horror. What's going on in Long Yu Dao? Chang Yaojin grabbed a pot of tea on the desk that had been there for a long time, gulped down a mouthful, and then said, Long Yu Dao is in Long Yu Dao. There is a drought in Long Yu Circuit, and the land is barren for thousands of miles. Moreover, it is just as shopkeeper Little Zhang said. When the hoe is used, there are locust eggs everywhere. There are even victims fighting to eat the eggs. What? Li Shimin's head exploded with a buzz. He quickly stepped forward and shouted, Where are the documents? Quick, give me the documents. Li Shimin grabbed a thick stack of documents from Chang Yaojin's hands. He took a deep breath and opened them one by one. In Long Yu Dao, Tonggu County of Chengzhou, Tianshui County of Qinzhou, Wuzhou, Ganzhou, and Shazhou, the groundwater is almost dry. Even the underground water has dried up. In the soil, there are 10 eggs in every inch of soil. A large number of livestock died of thirst in Yiwu County of Yizhou and Jiaohe County of Shizhou. Some people even dug out the eggs and cooked them. Li Shimin was shocked. Looking at the contents of the documents, he couldn't help but feel a clap of thunder in his mind. God! It's true! It's true! There are really eggs! The shopkeeper's god? He can even guess this. Wuji, Yaojin, do you think there are really immortals in this world? Or, can anyone really predict the future? Chang Yaojin was about to deny it. But when he thought of Zhang Feng's mysteriousness and the results of this investigation, he didn't dare to talk nonsense. Zhang Sun Wuji pondered for a moment and said, Your Majesty, there shouldn't be any immortals in this world. Perhaps shopkeeper Little Zhang used some unknown means and channels to get the information. Li Shimin shook his head non-committally. He took a deep breath and temporarily put down everything in his heart. He rubbed his forehead and said, This is a serious matter. Wuji, summon Fang Xianling, Wei Zhang, and Du Ruhui immediately to my study for a discussion. Commandery Prince Li Yuanjing and Li Jing of Long Yu Dao. Zhang Sun Wuji also knew the severity of this matter. He clasped his fists and left in a hurry. Your Majesty! A moment later. Taiji Palace Side Hall. Li Shimin's study. Everyone looked at Li Shimin and the other two with a puzzled expression. Li Shimin waved his hand and had everyone sit down. There are 3 important matters of Yen Dao Zhou. The first thing is the drought in Long Yu Circuit. There might be a large-scale locust plague in the near future. Everyone was stunned when they heard Li Shimon's words. They all knew about the drought in Longyu Daozhou. During this period of time, everyone had been busy trying to solve the problem. But why was there a locust plague now? Your Majesty, this matter is not reliable, is it? How could there be a locust plague here? Moreover, I just returned from Longyu Daozhou. I didn't hear about any locust plague. I didn't even see a single locust. I've heard about this as well. Although there are indeed locust eggs in the ground, how can there be no locust eggs in all the soil in the world? It's a question whether these locust eggs can even hatch in such a high temperature. How could there be a locust plague? That's right. There are locust swarms every year. How could there be a locust plague this year? Everyone couldn't help but start chattering among themselves. Li Shimon waved his hand slightly. Have any of you personally dug up the soil and looked at the locust eggs? Yaojin, tell us what you saw. Chang Yaojin's voice was serious when he heard this. Previously, I went to Longyu Daozhou to investigate under the Emperor's secret order. I found a large number of locust eggs in the soil of Shazhou, Guangzhou, and other places. In some places, I dug up a bowl of locust eggs in a piece of land the size of a dustpan. What? There are so many? That's not right. These can't be locust eggs, right? This a bowl. Hiss. Chang Yaojin glared at everyone. He waved his hand and threw the documents on the table to everyone. They hurriedly went through them. The more they read, the more serious their expressions became. Li Shimon continued. This is only one of the reasons. Do you know how long it has been since there was news of Tubo and Tuyuhan? Feng Xianling thought for a moment. Your Majesty, there has been no news of Tubo and Tuyuhan since the 21st of last month. Could this have something to do with the locust plague that you mentioned? That's right. Tuyuhan and Tubo are facing the same problem as Longyu Daozhou. Drought. The problem seems to be more serious than the one in the Tang dynasty. They are blocking the news. What? No wonder. No wonder. Your Majesty, this is our chance. If we send our troops now, we will be able to take down Tubo and Tuyuhan. Li Shimon nodded. You are right. If Tubo and Tuyuhan knew about the drought in Longyu Daozhou, they would think the same. Everyone looked at each other when they heard this. No wonder the communication between the Tubo and Tuyuhan spies was suddenly cut off. It was because they were trying to block the news. However, Li Shimon continued, not only that, I know that there will be a locust plague in Tubo and Tuyuhan. When that happens, the Tang dynasty will be in danger. Instantly, everyone's heart trembled. Didn't Tubo and Tuyuhan block the news? They didn't even know about the drought in Tubo. How did the Emperor know about it? Where did His Majesty get the news? Until now, everyone was still doubting the authenticity of these two things. Wei Zhang, who had been silent all this time, asked leisurely, Your Majesty, where did Your Majesty get these documents and news? Why didn't we receive any news? Chapter 10. Li Shimon heard that. He flung his sleeves and put his hands behind his back, looking unfathomable. Of course, I have my own channels. You don't have to doubt the authenticity of these two incidents. The final result is in your hands. Everyone was enlightened. 5 days ago, the Emperor had left the palace incognito. When he returned to the imperial city, Chang Yaojin hurriedly left with the Emperor's handwritten order. It turned out that the Emperor had already known about this matter 5 days ago. Everyone could not help but feel embarrassed. They looked at Li Shimon and felt that he was becoming more and more mysterious. Everyone knew the importance of this news. However, they were still shocked that the Emperor had already known about it 5 days ago. Was he a prophet? After all, the 3 provinces and 6 ministries were in charge of all the information centers of the Tang dynasty. The Emperor had learned about these 2 major incidents without the knowledge of the 3 provinces and 6 ministries. Your Majesty, I understand now. The locusts in Longyu Circuit might be able to be prevented. But with the locusts in Tubo and Tuyuhan, could it be the plague of locusts you mentioned? Feng Xianling thought for a while and asked in horror. That's right. If the locusts in these 3 places converge, then it will be a real disaster. Li Shimon's voice was grave. I heard that the Milky Way in Tubo has dried up. Even the grass and bark in Tuyuhan have been eaten clean. Long Yu Circuit borders these two countries, and the quality of the soil is the same. What does it mean that the people in Tuyuhan are eating the bark and grass? It means that the disaster there is particularly serious. Therefore, if there is a plague of locusts, where will they go first? Everyone was horrified. They could not help but think of the Tang dynasty. If locusts had erupted in the surrounding areas, then the Tang dynasty would be in danger. That's not right. Your Majesty, in terms of geography, the Turks are the closest to here. Why do you think the locusts will come to the Tang dynasty? Li Shimin smiled mysteriously. This is the third thing I want to say, and also the most important thing. According to reliable sources, the Iron Mountain ridge of the Turkic Khaganate suffered a rare snowstorm, killing countless cows and sheep. Do you think that there would be food for locusts on the steppe of the Turks at that time? Boom! Everyone was aghast. Every word Li Shimin said was like a heavy hammer, striking everyone's eardrums. A snow disaster that was hard to come by in 100 years. How could this be? Heavens! Where did the emperor's news come from? However, the emperor had said that he had his own channels, so they didn't want to guess too much. Li Shimin calmly took a sip of tea. He asked in a deep voice, "My dear ministers, the most important task now is to prevent the locust plague. Also, I have a way to get rid of the locust plague. I can even sell this method to Tubo and Tuyuhan in exchange for the resources we need. What do you think? As for the matter of the Turks, let's wait and see." Ha! Everyone was stunned. There was a way to solve the problem? However, the next moment everyone understood. If the emperor could get the information in advance, he must have a way to solve the problem. Everyone clasped their hands together and said, "Your Majesty is wise." Actually, what could Li Shimin do? He just thought of Zhang Feng at this moment. If Zhang Feng could prepare in advance, he must have a way to solve this crisis. Li Shimin's eyes burned when he thought of Zhang Feng. With a wave of his hand, Zhang Sun Wuji passed the 2 secret reports to everyone. Then he said, "Li Yuanjing and Li Jing, come in. Prince Li Yuanjing and General Li Jing, come in." The eunuch's voice rang out. The next moment, the two of them hurriedly appeared in the study. Zhang Sun Wuji recounted what happened to the two of them. Then, Li Shimin ordered, "Li Yuanjing, hear the decree. Your Majesty, hear the decree. Immediately think of a way to solve the problem of the eggs in the ground. Kill the eggs before the locust plague breaks out. At the same time, keep an eye on the movements of Tubo and Tuyuhan. If possible, use something of equal value to exchange for the method to kill the eggs. Your Majesty, hear the decree. Your Majesty, hear the decree. Your Majesty, hear the decree. Immediately send out the elites of the Tang dynasty to guard the borders of Yuzhou and Hulao Pass. Guard against the Turks. Your Majesty, hear the decree." After settling all this, Li Shimin let out a deep sigh. It was time to go to the tavern and try the better wine that Zhang Feng mentioned. These days, Li Shimin had been craving it. If not for these trivial matters, he would have gone to the tavern long ago. Just as Li Shimin thought of Zhang Feng, in the tavern, Zhang Feng, who was running the tavern step by step, panicked when he saw the sudden increase in the number of officials who did not belong to Chang'an City and the increasing number of secret agents. He had serious doubts. Could it be that Lao Li and Zhang Sun Wuji had a slip of the tongue after drinking and spread what he had said earlier? Otherwise, why would there be chess and card officials or messengers on the streets every day? Why would the merchants of Tubo and Tuyuhan who were originally in Chang'an City disappear without a trace? This was not right. Except for the emperor. After learning about what he had said earlier, Zhang Feng was devastated. He could not figure out why this happened. He pondered for a while. Zhang Feng swore to himself, "I have to be more careful with what I say next time. Otherwise, I will lose my life sooner or later." Chapter 11. The more he thought about it, Zhang Feng became more and more uneasy. In the past few days, he really didn't see Lao Li and the others. It had been 7 days. Could it be that these two gossipy people had really been caught? The more he thought about it, the more Zhang Feng felt that it made sense. These people always liked to inquire about the imperial court when they had nothing to do. Was this something that ordinary people could talk about? Wasn't this courting death? The plague of locusts in the Long Yu path had never happened so early in history. But now it seemed that the imperial court already knew about this matter. Originally, he thought that with his qualifications as a history and literature student, he could do well in the Tang dynasty. At the very least, he could become a high official. But now it seemed, before the system was activated, he had to be careful with his words and actions. If he pretended to be cool, he would be struck by lightning. Zhang Feng had always wondered if it was because of his identity as a transmigrator that caused the history of the Tang dynasty to have a butterfly effect. Or perhaps the Tang dynasty of this parallel world was always like this. But now, none of this was important. In his mind, he couldn't help but think of Lao Li and Old Chen. But in the next moment, he rejected them. These two guys were not famous businessmen in history, and they didn't know any high-ranking officials or dignitaries. How could they influence history? In the end, Zhang Feng attributed all of this to the Tang dynasty of this parallel world. The trajectory of history had always been like this. Then, this group of people began to nap with a clear conscience. Yo! Shopkeeper, you still have so much free time. Just like that, another 3 days passed in a daze. Li Shimin sorted out the imperial court and the matters of resisting the disaster with lightning speed. Then, he came to the small tavern again. These few days, Li Shimin didn't have a peaceful life at all. He was even a little worried. He originally thought that the insect eggs in the soil were easy to deal with. But he was wrong. The few of them stared with wide eyes. They thought for an entire night but couldn't come up with anything useful. In the end, Li Shimin gritted his teeth, stomped his feet, and slipped away. Looking at Li Shimin, whose complexion did not look too good after not seeing him for a few days, Zhang Feng was also somewhat surprised. Yo! Lao Li is here. I thought you were caught by the emperor. This was his sugar daddy. They could not afford to offend him. However, it was still acceptable to make appropriate jokes. Lao Li, from the looks of it, you've been quite busy recently, haven't you? How is it? Has everything been settled? Li Shimin smiled bitterly. How can this be solved? There's something wrong with a large herbal field in Liangzhou. I just went back, but I really can't think of a solution. Zhang Feng looked at the door and asked, why didn't Old Chen come with you? Chang Yaojin was so busy now that he wished he could clone himself. How could he have the leisure and elegant time to accompany Li Shimin to the tavern to drink? With his temper, if he came to drink now, it was guaranteed that after 3 glasses of wine, he would spit out the names of his parents. How could Li Shimin dare to bring this reckless man out at this time? Thinking of this, Li Shimin casually sat at a table and explained, isn't this because Long Yu Dao is busy? This guy's 30 mu of medicinal herbs are all ruined. How could he be in the mood to drink now? Hearing this, Zhang Feng suddenly understood. He was also relieved. It seemed that everything he thought before was smart. This matter was really different from the real history of this world, so there was a deviation. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng got into the kitchen and got busy. And Li Shimin didn't care about this. He was used to it. A moment later, Zhang Feng appeared in front of Li Shimin with a large tray. Looking at the thumb-sized golden objects with a tempting aroma, Li Shimin wasn't very surprised. If Zhang Feng didn't come up with something new, Li Shimin would really be shocked. Zhang Feng modified the tray, turned around and mysteriously fiddled with the kitchen for a long time, and then like a thief, came out with a large jar of wine. Old Li, you're in for a treat this time. Remember last time I said I would treat you to good wine? Here, this is really good wine. Smelling the tempting wine aroma, Li Shimin's eyes were already fixed. Swallowing his saliva, he hurriedly took the wine jar from Zhang Feng's hand and opened the wine cork. In an instant, a strong wine aroma made Li Shimin close his eyes and take a deep breath. Good wine. Ha 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 ha. Zhen, this is really good wine. Come, little brother Zhang, let's drink. Consider it Lao Li's treat. Li Shimin couldn't wait to pour 2 bowls of wine from the jar. In an instant, the whole restaurant was filled with the aroma of wine. Li Shimin smacked his lips and suddenly gulped down a mouthful of water. Cough, 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 cough. The next moment, under Zhang Feng's playful eyes, Li Shimin's face instantly turned into the color of pig liver, and then he coughed violently. Cough, cough, cough. Little brother Zhang, you are not kind. What wine is this? Why is it so strong? Is it stronger than the wine last time? Li Shimin was really shocked. The wine he had tasted last time had shocked him to the core. But this time, the wine really let him know what wine was. Although it was a little strong. But that mellow taste and the fragrance of the wine made him hold the wine bowl again after he finished coughing, and he couldn't stop. Zhang Feng smiled slightly. Drink slowly, this wine has to be drunk slowly. This is my foundation, and you, Lao Li, are my first customer. Come, tell me, what do you think of this wine? Drinking another mouthful of wine, Li Shimin tasted the taste between his lips and teeth, and smacked his lips. Good. I, Lao Li, had the honor of drinking the tribute wine once. That taste, compared to this wine now, to say something disrespectful, that thing is horse urine. But in the next moment, Li Shimin asked in a serious tone, does this wine have a name? Name? Zhang Feng really didn't think of this. After thinking for a while, Zhang Feng had an idea. This wine is called Mao Tai. Chapter 12. Mao Tai. Li Shimin smacked his lips again. He downed a large bowl of wine. At this moment, he actually felt a little dizzy. Li Shimin could not help but be shocked. Previously, he would not get drunk even if he drank a few jars. Now, he was knocked out after a bowl? This wine. Li Shimin shook his dizzy head. He remembered the purpose of his visit. Putting down the wine bowl, Li Shimin's voice was full of admiration. Shopkeeper, you are really a god. I did not believe what you said before, but after I went back, I immediately sent someone to Longyu Road. Then, I found out that everything you said was true. Only then did I know that there was a problem with my herb farm. Not only that, my other properties in Longyu Road were also affected. Many of my businesses in Tubo and Tuyuhun were suddenly cut off. Then I spent a lot of money. Guess what? Zhang Feng took a sip of wine, picked up something that Li Shimin did not recognize, and ate it with a crunch. What happened? Li Shimin slapped his thigh. Hey, just as you said, the drought in Tujue and Tuyuhun is serious. There is also a locust plague there. And there is indeed a snow disaster in Tujue. At this moment, Zhang Feng finally understood what Li Shimin meant when he said that he was a god. But he could not help but ask doubtfully, Lao Li, you don't know any high-ranking officials or dignitaries. How did you know so much in such a short time? As far as I know, it is very difficult to know these things. Li Shimin was shocked. He knew that this was not good. But on second thought, he laughed and said, isn't it because I have been doing business for many years and know some foreign friends? I know all these things from them. You also know that as a businessman, I always know people from all walks of life. I know all these things from them. Zhang Feng understood. But in the next moment, Li Shimin changed the topic and asked with a troubled expression, Brother Zhang, I, Lao Li, have really encountered a problem now. You have to help me. You also know that I'm a businessman. I do whatever makes money. Look, half a year ago, I went to Beijing and bought a large amount of herbal fields in Longyu Road. This time, Lao Li is really done for. Zhang Feng patted Li Shimin's shoulder. Lao Li, from the moment you walked in, I could tell that you had a lot on your mind, but it doesn't matter. Who asked us to have such a good relationship? Let's drink first. Wait, I'll think of a way for you. How about that? How could Li Shimin be in the mood to drink? Now that the locust plague was imminent, if it was not handled properly, the entire Tang dynasty would be finished. However, he also knew that a hasty person would not be able to eat hot tofu, so he could only follow Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng was also in a good mood at this time. First, he knew that this matter did not spread from him, so there was no need to be afraid that the government would find out about it. Second, this was also the first time he had brewed a high-quality liquor on Earth since he came to this world. He had already thought about it, if it was possible in the future. This liquor would definitely change this world. Even if he only had to produce this liquor, he would be able to make a lot of money. Zhang Feng personally filled the cup and said mysteriously, Lao Li, try this new thing that I've come up with in the past few days. This thing is a good accompaniment to wine. As he spoke, he pointed at the golden yellow cocoon on the tray. Li Shimin was stunned. This was the first time he had heard Zhang Feng speak so highly of a dish that went well with drinking. Then, he looked at Zhang Feng who could not stop eating and picked up a piece out of curiosity. In the next moment, he looked at this thing and was stunned. However, when he saw the way Zhang Feng ate, he could not help but close his eyes and throw it into his mouth. Crunch! It seems to taste pretty good. After Li Shimin took a bite, he couldn't stop anymore. He seemed to be fighting with Zhang Feng to eat. Zhang Feng was not happy at this time. Good for you, old Li. I saw your reluctant look before, so it was all an act. After that, Zhang Feng did not hold back. After 3 rounds of drinking, Li Shimin was already dizzy from drinking. He touched his belly and burped. I say, Brother Zhang, now, you have to tell me, what is the solution to this locust plague? If this really happens, you might not be able to see me in the future. Looking at Li Shimin who was swaying, Zhang Feng was not much better. Holding Li Shimin's hand he bragged. Brother! Since we are all brothers, as long as I can help you, even if I have to climb a mountain of swords or dive into a sea of fire, I will not hesitate. Good. Good brother. Let's go and become sworn brothers. While talking, Li Shimin was about to pull Zhang Feng to become sworn brothers. However, after moving in the chair for a long time, he could not stand up, so he gave up. A moment later, Zhang Feng said mysteriously, Brother, what do you think of the dishes that went with the wine? Li Shimin patted Zhang Feng on the shoulder. Nothing to say. The wine is good. This dish is even better. Zhang Feng smiled. Then brother, the solution you want is here. Li Shimin was stunned. He shook his dizzy head. Looking at the tray in Zhang Feng's hand, he was dumbfounded. Good brother, what do you think? By the way, what did we eat just now? Li Shimin was really dumbfounded. He could not even speak clearly. This was the first time he was drunk since he ascended the throne. And he only drank 3 bowls before he collapsed. Although he was drunk, his subconscious was still there. Looking at Zhang Feng's mysterious appearance, he was a little confused. Zhang Feng leaned closer to Li Shimin and said, This is the locust egg. Wretch. Chapter 13. Sigh. Laoli, it's just a bug. Brother. Don't say any more. Li Shimin was on the verge of breaking down. As the emperor, he actually came here to eat bugs today? Luckily, he did not bring Cheng Yaojin, that idiot. If others were to find out about this, he would lose all his face. This, however, the taste, to be honest, was really not bad. Yes. No. I can't eat it for free. Even if I eat it, I have to let those old guys have a taste. Zhang Feng was also dumbfounded. In the previous delicacies, there were quite a few that were heavier than this. If he had not chatted with Laoli a few days ago and talked about locust eggs, and if he had not been free these few days, he would have inadvertently cooked up this insect cocoon, which was known as the top dish in modern times. Looking at Li Shimin, Zhang Feng really wanted to ask him how the roast meat tasted, but after thinking about it, he decided against it. Just this, Laoli almost vomited out his gallbladder. If he knew that he had eaten roast meat before, wouldn't he die on the spot? After thinking about it, in the end, Zhang Feng treated this as his biggest secret. He would rather die than let Laoli know. After vomiting again for a while, Laoli regained his senses. I say, shopkeeper, this dish of yours. To be honest, if you don't say the name, it's really not bad. But you've really tricked me, Laoli. Zhang Feng chuckled. Just tell me if it's good or not. It's delicious. Li Shimin drank a big mouthful of tea and said while patting his chest. However, what does this have to do with solving the locusts? If we eat it like this, although we can accept it, not everyone can accept this taste. Zhang Feng heard this and nodded. This was indeed not a solution. However, if we make it into a finished product and package it well, we won't say anything, just like what you ate at the beginning. What do you think? Right. Zhang Feng snapped his fingers as his eyes lit up. Laoli, there's a chance to get rich. Do you want it? Li Shimin was dumbfounded. A chance to make a fortune? Where did this come from? Now all these things were tormenting him. Asking him to do business? However, he also knew that Zhang Feng might be talking about this epidemic, so he said subconsciously, Tell me about it. Zhang Feng patted Li Shimin's shoulder. Laoli has good taste. If you believe me, I can guarantee that you will earn a lot of money. Perhaps even the current emperor will beg you. Oh? Then tell me. Here's the thing. You've just eaten a locust egg. You'll provide the manpower and money, and I'll provide the technology. We'll make it into a delicacy and snack of the Tang dynasty, and then sell it in all places. Do you want to do this kind of cost-free business? A hint of hesitation flashed in Li Shimin's eyes. Brother Zhang, the business you mentioned is good, but if people know that this thing is the raw material, they won't be able to bear it. Zhang Feng knew that Li Shimin would say that. He spread his hands helplessly. I'm very doubtful about how you do business. Don't you know how to be flexible? If you wrap the locust egg in flour and fry it, who will know what it is? Besides, we can fry it. We can make it into other flavors. We'll only sell it in pubs as a side dish. We won't sell it to the public. Who do you think has nothing better to do after drinking? While speaking, Zhang Feng patted Li Shimin, who was petrified. Laoli. As long as there are enough ideas, there will always be more difficulties than solutions. Li Shimin was dumbfounded. Now that various industries in the Tang dynasty were in a slump, why not use this method to solve the locust crisis and make a wave of private money? However, could this thing really be sold? Was there really someone who could accept it? Li Shimin couldn't help but ask again, then tell me, how do we do this? Zhang Feng simply told him frankly. First of all, sell all your industries in Chong and make room for a winery. We won't sell these locust eggs to the public, only to the drinkers. Then, we'll gather Old Chen and a few others and go to Longyu Road to collect a large number of locust eggs, even locusts. At that time, I'll teach you how to cook this thing. What do you think? Isn't it a way to make a fortune? Zhang Feng said excitedly. And Li Shimin's eyes couldn't help but light up. This was really killing two birds with one stone. Buying the locust eggs would stimulate the local economy. Then, he would turn around and sell the wine and the delicacies made from the locust eggs. This was really killing two birds with one stone without any cost. However, it was still not enough. This was not enough insurance. If someone found out, the business was secondary. This locust plague. Li Shimin took a deep breath. He looked at Zhang Feng carefully for a moment and said, Sometimes, I've been wondering who exactly you are and why you know so much. Now, can you tell me what other abilities you have? And how did you know about Longyu Road and the Tubo Turks? After a lot of twists and turns, finally, Li Shimin's words came back to the beginning. Zhang Feng's eyes flashed. He knew that this day would come. He smiled indifferently. I've said it. I'm the one who calculated it. Li Shimin shook his head. I don't believe it. Hey! I knew you wouldn't believe it. I won't pretend anymore. I'll tell you the truth. I'm actually a cultivator who has cultivated for 5,000 years on Mount Wutai. Because I'm about to break through the shackles of heaven and earth and ascend to the heavenly realm, I came to the mortal world to experience it. Everything that happened before was calculated by me. Li Shimin was speechless. Come on. If you're an old monster who has cultivated for 5,000 years, then wouldn't I be the Jade Emperor? Originally, he was looking forward to what Zhang Feng would say. But this guy was just bragging. Li Shimin couldn't help but interrupt Zhang Feng, who was talking loudly. Zhang Feng looked around and looked at him with a solemn expression. Li Shimin said, Laoli, everything I said before is nonsense. I used my supreme cultivation to reveal it. You must not spread it. Otherwise, I'll be in trouble. Looking at Zhang Feng's solemn expression, Li Shimin was really scared. The teacup in his hand fell to the ground with a clang and smashed into pieces. Chapter 14. Li Shimin was dumbfounded. When Zhang Feng saw Li Shimin's expression, his interest was immediately piqued. He spoke frankly with assurance. Back then, I sensed the calamity and came out of seclusion to help the first emperor unify the 6 states. However, his descendants were too disappointing. Disheartened, they returned to Mount Wutai and continued to cultivate. Then, Zhuge Kongming was born. I sensed the call of the heavens and accepted him as my disciple, teaching him righteousness. However, he played himself to death. From then on, I swore not to accept any more disciples. After that, I roamed the void and shuttled through the torrent of history. I could see 5,000 years in the lunar plane and 30,000 years in the heavens. Therefore, I can see such a trivial matter clearly with just a glance. In fact, believe it or not, I am able to see everything that Tuli Khan is saying in Royal City right now. Li Shimin was so embarrassed that his cancer was acting up. The corner of his mouth twitched involuntarily. Then tell me, what is Tuli Khan saying now? Cough cough cough. Zhang Feng did not expect Lao Li to ask this at this time. He waved his hand. Zhang Feng said, "Don't be noisy. Let me see. Yes, Tuli Khan said it's time to eat." Pfft. Fine, fine, fine. Li Shimin could not stand it anymore. If he was really so awesome, how could he not know who he was? Before this, Li Shimin was still listening with great interest. However, when Zhang Feng said that he could see what Tuli Khan was saying with just a glance, he almost went crazy. This bragging. Li Shimin coughed dryly. "Manager, we have been together for half a year. Lao Li, I think that I have already regarded you as a close friend. However, you can't fool me like this, right? My house is on fire, and you..." Cough, cough, cough. All right then. Zhang Feng took advantage of the situation and coughed. Then he took a sip of tea and said, "Actually, I said this a few days ago. It's just that you didn't take it to heart back then." Oh. Li Shimin thought about it carefully. However, he still didn't think of anything. Zhang Feng had no choice but to explain again. "Last time I said that you guys don't care about the price of food. I didn't wrong you guys. What does Long Yu Dao produce? Food. Then when you go back, take a look at the market and see if the grain, meat, and poultry are produced in Long Yu Road. Then, you'll be able to guess the price and quantity. You also know that my business isn't good to begin with. If it weren't for the fact that I could chat with you and brag to you every now and then, and the fact that you guys helped me out, I would have closed my shop a long time ago. Basically, I go back every day to buy some ingredients. Since 20 days ago, the quantity of meat and poultry produced in Long Yu Road has decreased sharply. Moreover, the price has skyrocketed. Even the price of food in Long Yu Road has increased by several times. Even now, you can't find a single grain of food in Long Yu Road. What does this mean? This means that the merchants are not hoarding goods. It's easy to hoard food, but what about meat and poultry? This is going to lead to the source. There's a problem with the source." Li Shimin furrowed his brows tightly. He listened carefully. However, the more he listened, the more waves he felt in his heart. This time, he was really right. Zhang Feng continued, "Most importantly, go to the city gate and take a look. You know everything about the number of refugees in Long Yu Road. Then, how did you calculate the number of refugees in Turkic and Tubo?" Li Shimin couldn't help but ask doubtfully. Zhang Feng drank a cup of tea and said, "Actually, this is even easier to discern. Think about what the Turks and Tuyuhun produce. Then, take a look at the recent prices and quantities, and you'll be able to discern it with a single glance." Li Shimin patted Zhang Feng's shoulder excitedly and said, "Turkic produces fur products, Tubo produces blankets, and Tuyuhun produces jewelry. During this time, Chang'an City is out of stock. Could it be? Not bad, Lao Li. You have improved." Zhang Feng looked at Li Shimin with admiration and said, "Do you still need me to say it now?" Li Shimin was silent. So, all these could be observed from the minute details. But, in the end the mystery was solved. But, what was the solution? Although Zhang Feng said that it was possible to make food out of the locusts, it was definitely not enough. Even if he ordered the entire Long Yu Dao to dig up the locusts, how long would it take? Even if Zhang Feng's method was feasible, there had to be a process to implement it, right? What if no one accepted this thing? What would they do? Moreover, who knew how many eggs there were in the soil? They couldn't possibly plow the entire Long Yu Dao, right? Li Shimin couldn't help but change the topic to controlling the locusts again. Then, shopkeeper, other than eating, is there any other way to deal with the locusts? I feel that this method is a little weak. Zhang Feng patted his head and said doubtfully, "Lao Li, I just praised you for being smart. Why are you confused again?" Li Shimin touched his chin and coughed dryly. "Well, I really can't think of any other way." Zhang Feng was speechless. But he still explained carefully. "It's still the same old method. Eat." Chapter 15. Eat my ass. Li Shimon's face darkened. He wondered what else this guy could do other than eat. Zhang Feng seemed to have seen through his thoughts and chuckled. When I say eat, I don't mean what you think. Li Shimon heard that and asked doubtfully, Then what are you? Lao Li. Sometimes when I see you, you're as smart as a monkey. But now it seems that you... Zhang Feng shook his head speechlessly. Think about it, what's the favorite thing to eat? Li Shimon said subconsciously. Zhang Feng's face turned green. I mean, other than people, what else can eat locusts? Zhang Feng was about to explode from Li Shimon's stupidity. He might as well say it directly. I'm talking about chickens. Have you ever raised chickens? That guy can eat at least 100 locusts a day. Think about it, if there were millions of chickens, what would the effect be? Even if a chicken ate an average of 100 locusts' eggs a day, what if there were millions of chickens? How many would they eat? Buzz. Li Shimon's drunkenness completely sobered up. That's right. Chickens. Using chickens to deal with locusts. Why didn't he think of that? Ha 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 ha. Brother Zhang, you're really something. If that's the case. That's not right. The locust's eggs are all in the soil. Even if a chicken uses its claws to dig, it can't dig that deep. Zhang Feng snapped his fingers. Smart. Now, we need another thing. What is it? Pigs. Li Shimon's face darkened. He was about to retort, but the next moment, he suddenly thought of something. Pigs. They were real pigs. Zhang Feng continued, If you have the ability and the money, you can go and kill all the pigs in the Tang dynasty. We don't need all of them. We just need to gather all the pigs in Long Yu Road and raise them in captivity. Every day, we'll let them plow a piece of land by themselves. Then, we'll put the chickens in. Think about it, what will the result be? Not only that, if you can gather a few million more ducks and work together, it's not that I, Zhang Feng, am bragging. Even if the locusts in Tubo and Tuyuhan were all killed before the locusts broke out of the soil, there would be no problem at all. Also think about it. Don't you need pigweed to raise pigs? Raising chickens and ducks, do they get food? But if you have this egg, you don't need to provide anything. In less than a month, even if you sell 10 chicken and duck eggs for 1 copper coin, you'll make a *king fortune. Moreover, the meat of chickens and ducks that eat insects, as well as the meat of pigs, is extremely delicious. In that case, after you kill the locusts, you can sell these pigs, chickens, and ducks for a large sum of money. Not only will you not suffer a loss, but you'll also make a lot of money. That's not all. If you really have the courage to do it, the emperor will definitely give you a plaque that says you're a model disaster fighter. A royal gift from the emperor. That thing is equivalent to a death exemption plaque. Moreover, if you sell this thing, you'll get at least 1 million. Not only that, but the emperor will also shortchange you. With a wave of his hand, you can pick up tens of millions of taels of silver for free. Not only that, you can also take the opportunity to give the pigs, chickens, and ducks to the emperor in front of him. That'll be worth more than you selling them. Don't ask why. Li Shimon was dumbfounded. He was shocked. This little shopkeeper's mouth was really good at talking. However, on second thought it was really as he said. However, Li Shimon had a feeling that Zhang Feng was treating him like a fool, but he could not find any evidence. At that moment, Zhang Feng took a sip of tea and continued to brag. Lao Li, you have to thank me. Look at this. When the time comes, our food and wine, as well as your business, and our futures, if the emperor is happy, with a wave of his hand, he'll bestow them exclusively to the royal family. Lao Li, you'll make a fortune, do you know that? The more Zhang Feng spoke, the more excited he became. He even thought that if he could curry favor with Li Shimon, wouldn't he be rich? That was an opportunity. He could not afford to lose it. Zhang Feng continued to brag to Li Shimon for another half an hour until his cheeks hurt so much that he could not do anything else. Only then did he stop. Li Shimon also breathed a sigh of relief. Good lad. He was too good at bragging. However, what Zhang Feng said was indeed true. That was indeed a good idea. At that moment, Li Shimon looked at Zhang Feng and liked him more and more. He could not wait to stand up and tell Zhang Feng that he was Li Shimon. However, that was just a thought. If he really jumped up and said that he was Li Shimon, Zhang Feng would only look at him as if he was an idiot. Sigh. Why would such a virtuous talent be willing to stay in the marketplace? Li Shimin could not help but sigh deeply. However, in the end he endured it. At that moment, it was still a little early. It was not time to lay all his cards on the table with Zhang Feng. Li Shimin saw that Zhang Feng had rested enough and asked again, "Based on your analysis, doesn't that mean that our chicken and duck army can still rush to Tubo and Tuyuhun to make a wave of money? Then, what if Tubo and Tuyuhun, or other businessmen also think of this idea? What should we do?" Haha. Zhang Feng chuckled. This was something that had been slowly accumulated over the past 5,000 years in Huaxia, until modern chicken and duck farms appeared in large numbers. Those who could think of this in this era were either transmigrators or dream on. Chapter 16. However, Zhang Feng thought so subconsciously. But it was just a thought. The wisdom of the ancient people could not be denied. On the contrary, the wisdom of the ancient people was much higher than that of the modern people. Oldly, actually, this matter will be learned by others sooner or later. However, when you do business, don't you know the word, first opportunity? If we take the first opportunity and make a name for ourselves in the first time, then guess what? Then why don't you take a guess? Will His Majesty recognize you or him? If it doesn't work, you can let him monopolize this matter. Didn't you say that you know some friends in the court? Also, what you're doing is a good thing for the people. If they know, what will they do? They'll report it immediately and ask for credit. Li Shimin nodded as if he understood. Then what is the first opportunity? Hey, you still don't understand? Zhang Feng rolled his eyes. You buy all the pigs, chickens, and ducks that you can buy first. Even if he knows the way, can he have an army of chickens and ducks comparable to you? At that time, you can wave your hand and have an army of tens of millions of chickens and ducks. Who dares to challenge you wherever you go? Li Shimin was stunned when he heard this. But he still nodded in agreement. He was really a bystander. It's the same for Tubo and Tubo. At this time, with the drought, do you think that Tubo and Tuyuhun can have as much land and resources as the Tang dynasty? It's good enough to have a bite to eat. Chickens and ducks are things that can fill the stomach and lay eggs. They've already eaten them. How can they bear to take them out? Waiting for people whose eyes are green with hunger to steal and eat. Besides, don't we have fried locust eggs to pave the way? This is the secret recipe of the two of us. At that time, won't Tubo be on his knees and beg you for help? Yes. Li Shimin patted his thigh excitedly. This was really a way. If this was really the case, then he could really rely on this chicken and duck army to make a lot of money. What he had in mind was not the gold and silver that Zhang Feng had in mind, but something of another level. But the meaning was the same. The next moment, Li Shimin asked again like a curious baby. If you come here, won't the Turks know about the disaster in the Tang dynasty? What if the Turks take the opportunity to invade the south at this time? Are you stupid? If I were Li Shimin, I would have an army of tens of millions of chickens and ducks under my command. Would I be a vegetarian? Li Shimin's face darkened. He suppressed his impulse and waited for Zhang Feng's explanation. However, at this moment he suddenly had an idea. I remember now. If I were the Tang emperors, all I need to do is to spread the word about how to control the locust plague, and Tubo and Tuyuhun would be the first ones to stop the Turks for us, right? Tisk tsk. Laoli, you're awesome. Zhang Feng patted Li Shimin's shoulder. That's right. You're right about this. But don't forget, there's still Huichi and Shui Yantua above the Turks. And if there's a snow disaster in the capital of the Turks, think about it. What will happen to Huichi and Shui Yantua? Li Shimin was shocked. Oh my god. Li Shimin went completely crazy. If this was true, then, could it be that these two countries also have a snow disaster? This is impossible, right? This matter can't be so coincidental. Yes. This matter is really so coincidental. I've already told you the reason. Just like the relationship between Long Yu Dao and Tubo and Tuyuhun, Huichi and Shui Yantua are both grasslands. Moreover, there are no mountains to block the snow and wind in the grasslands. You can imagine that the disaster in Shui Yantua, which is located in a more remote area, must be more severely affected, and must lack food and clothing. Impossible. Li Shimin stood up agitatedly. Li Shimin's eyes were already red as he did not have a good rest. At this moment, under the influence of alcohol, it became even redder. He widened his eyes in shock and said, "Impossible! Shui Yantua is thousands of miles away from the Tang dynasty. How did you know? Could it be that you guessed it again?" Li Shimin went crazy. The surrounding area was already chaotic enough. He did not expect that Zhang Feng would not stop until he was shocked to death. He even said that Shui Yantua was also affected by the snow disaster. How could Li Shimin not be shocked? Zhang Feng looked at Li Shimin in confusion and asked, "Lao Li, are you drunk? Think about the relationship between Shui Yantua and the Turks. You should have a lot of friends on the trade route. You just need to go back and ask about the history and geography of Shui Yantua and the Turks, and you'll understand. Also, let me ask you, do you know what Shui Yantua is rich in?" Li Shimin was stunned. He pondered for a moment and said, "Shui Yantua is rich in coarse grain, red, blue, yellow, and a special kind of jade. What's the use of that?" But suddenly, Li Shimin slapped his head and exclaimed, "You mean, I know from the price and quantity in the market?" Zhang Feng looked at Li Shimin with appreciation. "You guessed right, but there's no reward." "But I can't afford those things, and I don't know the price." Li Shimin was stunned. "Then how did you know?" Zhang Feng spread his hands. "I calculated with my fingers. F***CKU. Chapter 17. Li Shimin felt like his head was about to explode when he heard Zhang Feng say that he could make a prediction with his fingers. If this thing could really be calculated, then he would have lived in vain. However, there was nothing he could do if Zhang Feng did not want to tell him. Everyone had their secrets. Just like how he hid his identity. Li Shimin, on the other hand, was much calmer now. After a careful analysis, he actually managed to find some clues from it. "Manager, are you saying that Shui Yantua also hid the news of the disaster? Is he also afraid that the Turks would target him if they knew?" "Lao Li, you are so talented. You have learned how to draw inferences from one case." Zhang Feng praised from the bottom of his heart. "That is indeed the case. They are nomads and lack food. Their main source of food is the support of trade with the surrounding countries. Now, their main source of income, animal husbandry, has been hit hard. Think about the consequences. What will happen if other countries find out? They will attack and take advantage of the situation to annex the other side." Li Shimin said in horror. "Yes," Zhang Feng said excitedly. He took out another jar of good wine from the kitchen, poured 2 big bowls, and clinked it with Li Shimin. Then, Zhang Feng continued, "Here is the problem. Now you should understand why they want to keep the news a secret, right? That is because whoever moves first will be the first to be destroyed. Just like now. If the Tang dynasty takes the lead to attack one side, they will be attacked crazily by the other 2 sides. The same goes for the Turks." Hiss. Li Shimin gasped in horror. Was this the truth? Was this the current state of the world? This, Li Shimin could not help but break out in a cold sweat on his back. If they had rashly sent out the troops, then, not only would the locust plague be uncontrollable, but the current drought would also be delayed because of the troops. Not only that, the other 2 forces watching from the sidelines would definitely attack the Tang dynasty madly in order to survive. Even if the Tang dynasty returned and defeated the Tubo, Tuyuhun, or Tujue who came to attack the Tang dynasty, the drought would continue to spread. The plague of locusts would no longer be under his control. Moreover, the famine would also cause the Tang dynasty, which had just stabilized, to become unstable. "Lao Li? Lao Li? What happened to you?" He saw that Li Shimin was in a daze. His face was pale and his body was trembling. Zhang Feng, on the other hand, was shocked. Could it be that he had given her too many surprises that she was too shocked? Zhang Feng scratched his head in confusion. At this moment, Li Shimin took 2 deep breaths and smiled faintly. "It's nothing. I just thought a little too far. However, why would a talent like you be willing to work in this ordinary pub? Why don't you become an official?" Zhang Feng smiled helplessly. There was no answer. He also wanted to. However, to be on the safe side, now was not the time. His biggest trump card had not been activated. He definitely could not move for the time being. Moreover, if this plague of locusts was a test prepared by Zhang Feng, if he could use this opportunity to attract Li Shimon's attention, that would be the best. If he could not attract Li Shimon's attention, it did not matter. He had plenty of opportunities. However, he had to support Lao Li, his financial backer. When the time came, he would be the foundation of his foothold in the Tang dynasty. Moreover, this wine also needed a chance to make a name for itself. In this way, his reputation would accumulate until the system was activated. Then, he would have enough capital. He took a sip of wine. Zhang Feng said, "Actually, I've thought about becoming an official. However, I haven't thought about it yet. I'll talk about it when I've thought about it." "Well, if you want to be an official, I know a few people who might be able to help you. With your eloquence, you might be able to enter the 3 provinces and 6 ministries in 3 to 5 months. Ha ha ha. Zhang Feng laughed. "Lao Li, you're really drunk. Do you think the 3 provinces and 6 ministries are owned by your family? If it's owned by your family, I can consider it. Who in Chong and City doesn't want to enter that place? How can it be my turn?" Li Shimon thought for a moment and smacked his lips. In the end, he slowly shook his head. It seemed that it was not the right time yet. Moreover, he had drunk 2 big bowls of wine with Zhang Feng. He couldn't sit still anymore. Moreover, he had important things to do when he went back. He couldn't help but stand up unsteadily and said, "Manager, let's not drink today. If we drink again, I'll really be drunk. I'll go back and think about what you said today." As he spoke, Li Shimon took out a stack of banknotes. He didn't know how many there were. He stuffed it into Zhang Feng's hand and said, "Manager, Lao Li will remember what happened today. I'm going back." Zhang Feng looked at the banknotes in his hand and his eyelids twitched. Damn it. This money. A huge stack. Was it because the banknotes were worthless? However, Zhang Feng still held a fist and palm salute. "That's great. Thank you, Lao Li. Next time, I'll kiss you and drink the strongest wine and listen to the strongest story." Lao Li, who had just walked to the door, seemed to have thought of something. He turned around unsteadily. "By the way, do you still have that I just ate? I'll bring it back for old Chen and the others to try. And this jar of wine." Zhang Feng suddenly understood. He slapped his forehead and said, "Okay, I'll let you keep it." Chapter 18. Night gradually enveloped the entire imperial city. In Taiji Palace, Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, and the others sat in the palace with heavy hearts. In order to deal with the drought and the locusts that would follow, it could be said that they were about to go bald. However, they still could not think of a way. Today, the emperor actually had the leisure to sneak out of the palace for an entire afternoon. At this moment, the most dissatisfied person was Wei Zheng. He sat in Taiji Palace with a dark face the entire time. The people who wanted to chat with him smacked their lips and swallowed their words. After a while, Li Shimon walked into the palace slowly. Without waiting for everyone to salute, Li Shimon waved his hand and said, "I have summoned all of you here tonight for no other reason than to reward everyone for their hard work. During this period of time, everyone has put in a lot of effort for Long Yu Dao's matter." As he spoke, Li Shimon waved his hand. Behind him, 2 or 3 palace maids entered the palace with exquisite trays. The next moment, a strong aroma of wine instantly attracted the attention of the people. Amongst them, the one who was the most shocked was Chang Yaojin. "I came across such good wine today and I can't bear to enjoy it alone. Your Majesty!" Wei Zheng exploded. He interrupted Li Shimon in a serious tone. "At this time, the Long Yu circuit has suffered a serious disaster and we have not thought of a way to deal with the locusts. Coupled with the situation in Tubo, Tuyuhun, and other places, we are not in the mood and can't drink. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." Li Shimon seemed to have a premonition. However, in front of so many people, Wei Zheng's ruthless words still made the corners of his mouth twitch. "Minister Wei, who said there's no solution? I meditated in the palace for half a day today and have thought of a solution." "What? What solution? What solution did your Majesty think of?" Among these voices, Chang Yaojin stared at the wine jar on the table and swallowed his saliva. He mumbled, Just leave the palace. You don't have to make it sound so formal. Your Majesty, did you go to the tavern again? Cough, cough, cough. Li Shimin coughed and glared at Chang Yaojin. That's right, I have found a way. However, everyone, let's drink first. There's no hurry. As he spoke, Li Shimin was in a good mood as he opened up the oiled paper-wrapped items on the table. In the next moment, grains of golden delicacies emitting tempting fragrances were revealed before everyone. Everyone's eyes were wide open. As for Chang Yaojin, the moment Li Shimin opened the box, he was too lazy to even use his chopsticks. He grabbed a handful and started to eat. He knew that it was made by Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng's products, how could the taste be bad? Chang Yaojin started to eat. Everyone began to eat heartily. While eating, there were also palace maids pouring wine into the exquisite wine cups in front of everyone. Li Shimin raised his wine cup high and said, "Everyone has worked hard during this period. That's right, this wine and this delicacy are indeed made by shopkeeper Zhang. Come, let me propose a toast to everyone." As he spoke, Li Shimin drank a cup full. However, while drinking, Li Shimin's eyes stared straight at everyone. As expected, after everyone suddenly gulped down the wine, almost everyone began to cough violently. Cough, cough, cough. Damn it! What kind of wine is this? It's too strong, isn't it? Your Majesty, this wine, this. I've been drinking wine all my life. This wine is too good. What a strong wine. What kind of person is that shopkeeper? To be able to brew such a fine wine. He must be a genius, a genius. Li Shimin did not pay attention to the crowd. Instead, he kept urging everyone. Come, 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 let's eat. I think you're the second person in the entire Tang dynasty to eat such delicacies besides me. So amazing. Everyone looked suspiciously at Li Shimin, who was standing far away, and then at Chang Yaojin, whose mouth was full of oil. Their eyelids twitched. Zhang Sun Wuji knew Zhang Feng. Seeing Chang Yaojin's reaction, he picked up a grain with his chopsticks and threw it into his mouth. Everyone's eyes turned to Zhang Sun Wuji again. Lord Zhang Sun, how does it taste? Brother Zhang Sun, what's the taste? Zhang Sun, old man. Zhang Sun Wuji chewed for a while and suddenly opened his eyes. The next moment, he didn't care about his image. He grabbed a handful with one hand and touched the wine cup with the other hand and began to drink. Is it really so delicious? Everyone was a little suspicious. However, looking at the food on the plate that was gradually decreasing, they swallowed their saliva and joined the battle. Li Shimin looked at everyone in a good mood and smiled. Half an hour later, cups and plates were in a mess. Everyone smacked their lips and recalled the wonderful taste. They thought about finding time in the future to drink in the small tavern. At this time, Li Shimin said leisurely, "Actually, there's a way to solve this plague of locusts, and you've eaten it." Li Shimin's words that came out of nowhere made the originally dizzy crowd even more confused at this time. How's the taste of this dish? Wonderful. Wonderful beyond words. I've never eaten such delicious food. Me too. Your Majesty, what's the material of this dish? What does it have to do with fighting this plague of locusts? Li Shimin put his hands behind his back and said mysteriously, word by word. This dish is the eggs of locusts. Ha! Blurg. Blug, blug. Your Majesty. I blurg. Chapter 19. Looking at the people who were vomiting, Li Shimin's mood was really good. At this time he said slowly, "Today, I have found a solution that can solve the locust plague and also prevent this plague of locusts. All the losses caused by the drought and even make a lot of money. I won't talk about this kind of food. Before you hear the name, you all know how it tastes. If we buy this kind of food in large quantities in Longyu Road, not only can it promote the economy, but we can also cook these things on the spot and sell them at a low price. What do you think will happen?" Zhang Sun Wuji was shocked. "Your Majesty, in this case if we don't tell you the real ingredients of this food, then... But, this can't really solve the drought and the economic losses caused by the locust plague by mobilizing all the people to join the ranks of digging for the eggs of locusts," Fang Xianling said with a pale face. "But this method is not a long-term solution, and it will be easy for people with bad intentions to find out the ingredients. By then. This is only one of the reasons. Li Shimin said indifferently. Secondly, if we use chickens, ducks and pigs to help, what will happen? Boom. Everyone was shocked. If a chicken eats an average of 100 eggs a day, what if there are tens of millions of chickens? Plus tens of millions of ducks and a large number of pigs, what will happen? I can tell you clearly that in less than half a month, there will not be a single locust egg in the land of Long Yu Road. Not only that, we can still sell the eggs of the chickens and ducks. It can be said that we are doing a business without any capital. Hiss. Everyone gasped in horror. Although this seemed to be a businessman's method, what did the Tang dynasty lack at this time? He was short of money. This method could not only solve the locust plague, but also generate income. Genius. This was King genius. Everyone knew this method. If they were to think about it, they would never think of such a method. And this mysterious shopkeeper. How much did he know? Not only that, but we can also sell these chickens and ducks to Tubo at a high price, or help Tuyuhun control the plague of locusts, or help them. I think that by that time, there will be no more chickens and ducks in the world like the Tang dynasty. How do you think Tubo and Tuyuhun will beg the Tang dynasty if they know about this? What? This? CK. Everyone was shocked once again. At this time, there was a serious famine in Tubo and Tuyuhun. Chickens and ducks were probably extinct. At this time, if the Tang dynasty solved the epidemic so quickly, then any condition could be negotiated. Zhang Feng. This kid was destined to be extraordinary. If he had the time to rope him in under his command, even if he didn't do anything, it would be good if he could come up with some ideas. At this moment, everyone had their eyes set on Zhang Feng. Wei Zheng's brows furrowed deeply as well. In the next moment, he couldn't help but nod. Your Majesty, this method is feasible, but what about the Turks? If we don't resolve the Turkic Khaganate snowstorm and carry out such a large-scale operation, we won't be able to hide the matter of Longjiudo anymore. Are we going to start a war? No. Li Shimin smiled mysteriously. It's impossible for us to start a war. If the Turks make a move, there's no need for us to make a move. Shui Yentua of the north and the other countries that need our help will eliminate them first. Do you think the Turks didn't think of this? Zhang Sun Wuji's eyelids twitched. He couldn't figure it out. Your Majesty, what does this have to do with Shui Yentua? If Tubo and Tuyuhun need our help, it's still reasonable. But what is Shui Yentua's intention? Shui Yentua also caused a snowstorm. What? When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but stand up in unison with a tang sound. They looked at Li Shimin in horror. How could Shui Yentua also cause a snowstorm? This didn't make any sense. Li Shimin looked at the people who had the same expression and reaction as when they first heard the news. Then, he told them what Zhang Feng said in detail. Everyone was in an uproar. Previously, they thought that Zhang Feng was a genius in business. But now they were wrong. They were very wrong. This group's talent in military affairs had already reached an unprecedented level. He had grasped the current situation of the world and the mentality of each country perfectly. More importantly, Zhang Feng had deduced all of this from the bits and pieces of information he had gathered in the marketplace. God. This was a true goddamn godly person. Just a moment ago, they were just admiring a talent. At this moment, everyone really wanted to befriend Zhang Feng more and more. The thought of taking Zhang Feng in as one of their subordinates grew stronger day by day. But now was not the time. At this moment, they could only come to a conclusion after this matter was carried out and the result was seen. Li Shimin felt a little smug at this moment. This was a feeling he had never felt since he became the Emperor of Qin. Li Shimin looked at the expressions of the people and smiled faintly. This matter is settled. Tonight, you all discuss it. Tomorrow morning, you will announce the imperial edict. Li Shimin's voice was serious. He shouted, all of you listen to my order. Tonight, you must calculate all the poultry and pigs in Chang'an City, and calculate the losses on the journey from Chang'an City to Longyu Road. Yes, Your Majesty. Chapter 20. Thud. 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 We're following the Emperor's orders. Get out of the way. In the imperial city, the sound of horse hooves and shouts could be heard one after another. Torches lit up the entire Chang'an City, making it as bright as day. The chaotic sound of horse hooves caused the idle commoners to walk out of their houses and curiously look at the imperial guards on the streets. However, when the crowd saw groups of imperial guards going in and out of the houses of the farmers, everyone was dumbfounded. Oh my God! What's going on? So many imperial guards? Are they looking for Turkic spies? Oh no! Old Wang's house is blocked. What? Under everyone's shocked eyes. In Zishiku, the door of a big house in Fengi Alley was knocked open. Under everyone's horrified eyes, a team of imperial guards hurried into the yard and left in less than a cup of tea. In an instant, everyone could not stay calm. They surrounded Old Wang, who was also dumbfounded. Old Wang, what did you do? Why did the imperial guards go to your house in the middle of the night? Is it you, brat? Tiske, so Old Wang is this kind of person. Old Wang's eyes were green with envy. No, that's not it. Those imperial guards were looking for chickens. What? Looking for chickens? Looking for chickens in the middle of the night? Everyone was dumbfounded. Old Wang hurriedly explained, I'm also very curious. I heard that they were ordered to investigate how much the chickens eat every day. And they even registered all the chickens and ducks in my house and said that they would buy them at market price in 2 days. I heard that they want to buy all the chickens and ducks in Chang'an City. Huh? What? Why do they want so many chickens and ducks? Even if the people in the palace want to eat, they can't eat so much. Does the emperor have any other purpose? What was going on? Everyone was dumbfounded again. No matter how hard they racked their brains, they still couldn't figure out what this meant. There were at least 1 million chickens and ducks in Chang'an City. Was the emperor crazy? While everyone was still in a daze, such a thing could be seen everywhere in Chang'an City. Moreover, this matter even spread more and more widely. In the end, it even reached a point where it was out of control. Have you heard? The emperor wants to eat chicken. They're going door to door to check. Last night, His Majesty was observing the sky at night and accidentally learned that the divine chicken had landed in Chang'an. His Majesty is looking for this chicken. I heard that the Pleiades star has descended to the mortal world. Your Majesty. In the beginning, such rumors were only spread in Ronggui Fong in Shi City. However, as the imperial guards and the local government runners of Chang'an City joined in, the matter became even more out of control. Early the next morning. East Market. Zhang Feng stared dumbfoundedly at the yamen runners shuttling through the streets and the taverns. His jaw almost dropped to the ground. What was going on? What was going on? Why did so many people suddenly come to check on the chicken? Could it be that Lao Li really told his friends in the yamen about this? Damn it! This was the perfect time for him to become famous. This credit would be nonsense if it did not go to Li Shimin. Now, this guy directly gave this function to these yamen runners. Zhang Feng was a little speechless. However, he did not know what to say. He could only take one step at a time. Moreover, at this rate, these silly people wanted the entire Chang'an City to know about this matter, right? At this moment, the pedestrians on the roadside pointed and whispered. From last night until now, I heard that thousands of imperial guards, and the local government of Chang'an City, at least tens of thousands of people did not sleep at all. What? They're all checking on the chicken? Yes. I heard that His Majesty observed the sky and learned that the Pleiades star has descended to the mortal world. He's afraid that the common people will eat the Pleiades star by mistake and bring disaster to the Tang dynasty. So he's investigating overnight. F***CK. It can't be. This morning, I even ate an egg. Hearing this, Zhang Feng's face darkened. Damn it, what has this rumor become? However, thinking about it carefully, this matter was indeed strange. Could it be that His Majesty also thought of this method to eliminate the locusts? But it can't be so coincidental, can it? Finally, Zhang Feng thought of Lao Li. He slapped his forehead. If he had known this would happen, he would not have given him the wine yesterday. This guy must have gone back to drink last night and bragged too much. As a result, someone with ulterior motives reported it and then it reached Li Shimin's ears. Or Lao Li wanted to claim credit and used his own method to find his fair-weather friends in the yamen, but in the end, his friends betrayed him. The more Zhang Feng thought about it, the more he felt that it was the last one. Zhang Feng could not help but furrow his brows tightly. If that was the case, he really had to be careful with his words and actions in the future. He wanted to pave a way for himself to get closer to Li Shimin, but now it seemed that shopkeeper. At this moment, after a yamen runner finished inspecting the small tavern, he said, "During this period, if you know where people are selling chickens and ducks, report to the yamen at any time. Also, during this period, feed the chickens and ducks in your backyard well. When the time comes, we'll buy them according to the price." The corner of Zhang Feng's mouth twitched. "Okay, don't worry, we won't eat even an egg. We'll keep it for you." Chapter 21. It was not only Zhang Feng's tavern. At this time, in Chang'an City, everyone was in an uproar. In the end, Chang Yaojin, Zhang Sun Wuji, and the others hurried out to the streets with their guards. In the secretarial department of the Imperial Palace, Wei Zhangzhang rummaged through the mountain of books and documents, trying to find a way to cure the locust plague. He always thought that although the emperor's method was feasible, it was too risky. Moreover, there had never been such a method in the history books. However, at this moment, the whispers attracted his attention. "Have you heard? Now, High Duke Liu and High Duke Zhao are going to count the number of chickens and ducks in Chang'an." Hiss. "Keep your voice down about this matter. I heard that the emperor had a dream last night that the Pleiades star officials came to the mortal world. That's why he issued a secret order to investigate. Sigh. This is such a mess. The old hens that I've been feeding for 3 years were registered this morning. They said that someone will come to collect them in a few days. What the hell is going on? They don't even let us eat the chickens and don't even dare to eat the eggs now." Hearing that, Wei Zheng frowned slightly. Looking at the two people whispering in the secretarial department, he asked, "Zhang Dechuan, Zhang Han, what were you two talking about just now?" When the two heard Wei Zheng's voice, their faces suddenly changed. They hurriedly turned around. "Hi Duke Zheng, we didn't say anything." Wei Zheng's face darkened. "Do the two of you think that I, Wei Zheng, am a deaf person? I won't pursue the crime of reporting your work for the time being. Tell me clearly, what did Chang Yaojin and Zhang Sun Wuji do? What Pleiades star officials? What's the matter?" The two of them couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. "Hi Duke, don't you know about this?" Wei Zheng thought for a moment and shook his head. Yesterday, he did hear the emperor say that he wanted to count the chickens, ducks and pigs in Chang'an. Could it be that Zhang Sun Wuji and Chen Yaojin, these two idiots, had blown this matter up? Wei Zheng's eyelids twitched violently. "Tell me everything you know." Looking at Wei Zheng's gloomy face, the two men wiped the cold sweat from their foreheads and said, "Since last night, the Imperial Guards have been dispatched to check the number of chickens and ducks in Chang'an City. Until now they have been investigating. Moreover, this matter has caused a stir among the people. Many people are even worried that something big has happened. Not only that, there are rumors going around saying that Pleiades has descended to the mortal world and even forbade anyone from eating an egg. Now that both High Duke Liu and High Duke Zhao are personally involved in this matter, although no one is panicking about it, all kinds of speculations have spread throughout Chang'an City." He listened to their conversation. Wei Zheng was furious. He almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Idiot! What an idiot! This matter was a small matter to begin with. All he needed to do was to send someone to inquire about it. Did he need to mobilize the Imperial Guards and the two High Dukes to personally supervise the investigation? Now that things had turned out this way, how was he going to clean up the mess? After thinking for a moment, Wei Zheng could not sit still anymore. He hurriedly ran out and ordered, "Quick, find High Duke Liu and High Duke Zhao and tell them to stop immediately. I'll go see the Emperor right away. Prepare the sedan. We're going to the palace." Meanwhile, on Vermilion Bird Avenue in Chang'an City, all the people looked at the squads of Imperial Guards and discussed among themselves. "Have you heard? The Emperor has decreed that he won't let anyone eat chicken anymore. It's said that Pleiades has descended to the mortal world." "What? Is that true?" This is troublesome. I just ate an egg. Will I anger Pleiades? Have you heard? The Emperor is going to ban chicken. Those who say that chicken are foreign spies. It said that the chicken was originally in a carriage on the street, Chang Yaojin and Zhang Sun Wuji looked at each other as they listened to the discussions on the street through the curtains. It was only then that the two of them realized that things were getting out of hand. Zhang Sun Wuji stared at the passers-by outside the carriage and said with a serious expression, "Cheng Yaozi, it seems like we've screwed up." Chang Yaojin scratched the back of his head and spread his hands. "Then what do you think we should do? You're also involved in this. By the way, you're the one who mobilized the Imperial Guards last night." "I don't know anything about this." Hearing Chang Yaojin's words, Zhang Sun Wuji's face darkened. "What are you talking about?" "It was the Emperor who gave the order last night." Chang Yaojin slapped his thigh and said, "That's right. It was the Emperor who gave the order. We were just following orders." We don't know anything. We were just following the rules." "Then what should we do now?" "Should we continue to investigate?" "Continue. Why don't we continue? We're just following orders." The two of them reached an agreement in the carriage. They looked at each other and smiled. Then they walked out of the carriage with their arms around each other's shoulders and entered a courtyard where the crowing of chickens could be heard. In just a few words, the two of them put all the blame on Li Shimin. Poor Li Shimin. Until now, he was still happily calculating whether he should go and make a speech to boost the morale of the millions of chickens and ducks in Chong, and when they went out of the city. Chapter 22. In Taiji Palace. Li Shimin was humming a tune. He was wondering if he should talk to Empress Zhang Sun about this. But at this moment, a little eunuch hurried in to report. "Reporting. Your Majesty. Duke Sheng wants to see you." Duke Sheng? Li Shimin's eyelids twitched when he heard that. "Did you see Wei Zheng's expression today?" The little eunuch thought for a moment and said, "Your Majesty, I don't know, but he didn't seem to be very happy." Not very happy. He was a little afraid of Wei Zheng. Although Wei Zheng had always been meticulous about the imperial court, Li Shimin felt a headache just thinking about his unforgiving mouth. However, after thinking about it carefully, there seemed to be nothing out of the ordinary about the recent incident in the palace. Thinking of this, Li Shimin flicked his sleeves and said, "Come in." The next moment, there was a rustling sound. Wei Zheng hurriedly appeared in the imperial study of Taiji Palace. "Wei Zheng greets your Majesty. You may rise. Please take a seat." Li Shimin waved his hand. Wei Zheng ignored Li Shimin. Instead, he said in a sorrowful voice, "I feel guilty. I dare not sit." What was he doing? Li Shimin raised his eyebrows and said, "What's wrong with you, my dear? Tell me about it." Wei Zheng saluted with trembling hands and said, "Your Majesty, I heard a big news from the secretary today. Rumor has it that your Majesty has sensed that the officials of the Pleiades have come to Chang'an, so you ordered everyone not to eat chicken or eggs. Is that true?" Li Shimin was shocked. However, Wei Zheng continued, "Also, there is a rumor that the chickens and ducks are foreign spies. Your Majesty is going to ban them from eating, buy them all, and then expel them from the Tang dynasty?" Li Shimin's face darkened. That damn Cheng Mo, that damn Zhang Sun Wuji. This matter. How did it become like this for me? Didn't I tell you to go and investigate it? This was the result of the investigation? Cough cough. My dear Minister. I didn't know about this. Weren't you listening at the side when I gave the decree last night? I didn't know about this. Is there really such a rumor in the market square? Li Shimin pretended to be confused. Wei Zheng sighed deeply. He also knew that the emperor couldn't be blamed for this matter. His tone softened as he said, "The news has spread. Even now, Chang Heizi and Zhang Sun have personally gone to supervise." What? Li Shimin was shocked. With a wave of his hand, he covered Wei Zheng's mouth and said with a solemn expression, "My beloved minister, you don't have to say any more. I will immediately issue a decree for them to return immediately. Someone come. Issue a decree for Duke Lu and Duke Zhao to enter the palace immediately." After thinking for a while, Li Shimin shouted again, "Summon all civil and military officials to the political announcement hall." A moment later, all the officials appeared in the political announcement hall and discussed the matter from last night to today in Chong, and with a confused expression. "Lord Gao, do you have any chickens at home?" No, I have 2 or 3 smoked chickens." If Lord Sun likes them, I'll treat you to a drink tomorrow? Cough cough cough, forget it. I also have a few at home. However, do you know why the emperor hurriedly issued the decree this time? Is it because of the matter in the market? Everyone looked at the backs of Wei Zhang, Chang Yaojin, Zhang Sun Wuji and the others and pointed at them. At this time, Chang Yaojin and Zhang Sun Wuji almost trembled all over. The emperor has arrived. At this moment, Li Shimin, dressed in a dragon robe, appeared in the political announcement hall. Long live the emperor. Li Shimin waved his hand. Glancing at Chang Yaojin and Zhang Sun Wuji, he said straightforwardly, "Do you have any countermeasures for the drought in Longyu Dao and the plague of locusts?" Seeing that everyone was silent, Li Shimin said again, "Yesterday, I found a way not only to solve the plague of locusts, but also to avoid the loss of Longyu Dao since the drought." What? There's such a way? Your Majesty, what method are you talking about? We are stupid. Your Majesty, please enlighten us. Li Shimin felt comfortable in his heart. After looking around, he told the previous matter again in a dignified manner. In an instant, everyone was dumbfounded. It turned out that this matter was really stirred up by the emperor. However, at this moment, Li Shimin said again, "Chang Yaojin, Zhang Sun Wuji. Since last night, how many chickens and ducks have you counted in Chang'an City?" The two of them couldn't figure out the emperor's intention. Even Wei Zhang, Fang Xianling and others couldn't figure out what the emperor meant at this time. Zhang Sun Wuji and Chang Yaojin stepped forward and reported, "Your Majesty, according to our count, there are 3,679,753 adult chickens and ducks in Chang'an City. 331 adult pigs. If we set off from Chang'an on the way to Longyu Dao, we counted 37,000 chickens and ducks and 69 pigs." Li Shimin nodded slowly. But the next moment, his face darkened. He suddenly asked, "Do you know your crime?" Chapter 23. Li Shimin roared. Chang Yaojin and Zhang Sun Wuji trembled. But in the next moment, they hurriedly knelt down. "Your Majesty, I don't know what I've done wrong. Your Majesty, you know that I'm an honest man. Please tell me what I've done wrong. You can hit or scold me. I won't complain at all." The same goes for this old subject. The two of them were very clear in their hearts. As soon as they entered, they saw Wei Zhang standing alone in the main hall. The two of them immediately understood. This old man knew about it and came to the emperor to complain. But they were all old foxes. They could understand what was going on with just a look. Why would they need to say more? Now that both of them had admitted defeat, Li Shimin could not say anything else. "I know that both of you want to solve the drought and the plague of locusts in Longyu Road as soon as possible. But you have to choose the right time, right? What time is it now? Both of you are still on the streets. Aren't you putting me in a state of being heartless? I only asked you to count the number of chickens and ducks. What are you doing?" "Your Majesty, I'm innocent." Zhang Sun Wuji cried out and said sorrowfully, "Your Majesty, since last night, High Duke Lu and I have been investigating thoroughly without sleep. I don't know why this happened." Everyone knew what was going on outside. So at this moment, Zhang Sun Wuji took the initiative to shirk the responsibility. Li Shimin was so angry that he gritted his teeth. "Enough." Wei Zhang could not bear to listen to it anymore. He shouted coldly, "Both of you are about 150 years old. Do you still need the emperor to tell you the severity of this matter? Do you still need to remind me? Is this something that a human being would do? If you really want to investigate, you can ask a few people and a few families. You can easily figure it out. Do you need to mobilize so many people? Do you need to mobilize the Imperial Guards to investigate overnight? Have you thought about the consequences if someone with ulterior motives starts a rumor?" Wei Zhang pointed at Chang Yaojin and Zhang Sun Wuji, scolding them until their faces turned pale. They wanted to retort, but they couldn't win against Wei Zhang. Moreover, they had forgotten about this matter. It was all Zhang Feng's fault for being too good. After returning from their sin, the two of them secretly hid in Zhang Sun Wuji's residence and drank for the entire night. He only found out this morning, but it was already too late. At this time, all the officials in the court looked at Wei Zhang and involuntarily retreated to the entrance of the hall. Even Li Shimin had the intention to slip away. However, would Wei Zhang let them off? He was thinking too much. How could Wei Zhang not know what was on everyone's mind? Wei Zhang stepped forward and went down on one knee. He looked at Li Shimin and said, "Your Majesty, look at the situation in Chang'an City now. Everyone is in a state of panic. I hope that Your Majesty can immediately issue an edict to stop this behavior. Moreover, no one knows if this method will work. If it doesn't, have you thought about the consequences of making such a big fuss?" Li Shimin pursed his lips. Issue an edict. Wasn't this equivalent to him slapping his own face? A moment ago, he had mobilized so many people to do this, and now he was issuing an edict? How would the world view him then? At this time, although no one knew that this matter was related to the locust plague in Longyu Dao, he knew that this matter would definitely be exposed. If people knew that this matter was to control the locust plague, it would be fine. However, what if this method was not effective as Wei Zhang said? Li Shimin was also a little hesitant. Your Majesty, we can't delay any longer. If we delay any longer and people find out, the consequences will be unimaginable. Are you going to ignore the comfort of the world and insist on doing it your own way? Have you thought about the consequences if this fails, and the locust plague cannot be concealed? Your Majesty, you are the emperor of a country. How can you sneak out of the palace at such a big time? How can you do that? You are empathetic to the people and leave the palace in plain clothes. This is a good thing, but you are drunk and talking at night. You even rashly issued an edict to thoroughly investigate the chickens and ducks in Chang'an City. How can you face the country by doing such a ridiculous thing? Li Shimin's face darkened. Below the hall, Du Ruhui and the others smacked their lips. They wanted to persuade Wei Zhang, but in the end, after thinking about it, they decided to forget about it. This stubborn donkey could not be persuaded. If anyone were to try to persuade him at this time, they might end up suffering a calamity. Obviously, everyone seemed to be aware of this. At this time, they lowered their heads and pretended not to see or hear. Who dared to listen to this matter? Wei Zhang said a lot of things from big to small. Li Shimin could only pretend to be magnanimous and nodded from time to time. He could not berate Wei Zhang in front of all the officials, could he? If so, who would dare to speak the truth in the future? Moreover, he was the one who gave Wei Zhang the Edict of Remonstrance in front of the world. Moreover, he knew Wei Zhang's character best. It was true that he had done something wrong in this matter. It took him a long time to convince Wei Zhang that he had done something wrong. Only then did he manage to convince Wei Zhang to stop. Looking at the officials in the court, Li Shimin did not know whether to advance or retreat. It was very uncomfortable. After everyone left the court, Li Shimin sighed. Guards, this matter. Temporarily put it aside. Send people to the Longyu Road to collect chickens, ducks, and pigs. Let's see the effect first before we decide. Li Shimin rubbed his forehead and looked at the empty political announcement hall. Alas! It seems that I have to go to shopkeeper Zhang's place. Arrange it. I want to go out and relax. Chapter 24. After Li Shimin made up his mind, he hurried back to the harem. Then, he pretended to rest at Empress Zhangxuan's place. Then he disguised himself and led a large number of Jinwu guards disguised as ordinary people out of Yanqi Gate and into the East Market. At this time, Zhang Feng was in the tavern checking the bills that needed to be purchased. He was preparing to go out to buy goods and then wander around outside Chang'an City to see if he could get a few fresh river fishes. For him, this tavern was dispensable. The main customers were only Lao Li and the others. During this time, Lao Li did not come to visit, and he was happy to be idle. At this time, Chang'an City was abuzz with the chicken and duck incident. He also felt a little guilty and wanted to go out and see what the people outside Chang'an City had to say. If it really did not work, then he could only slip away. Zhang Feng thought about this matter from beginning to end. If Lao Li only did it in private, there might be unexpected results. But now that the imperial court knew about it, Zhang Feng was 100% sure that if the emperor was not crazy, he would definitely not dare to do it. At this time, the Tang dynasty had just stabilized. After experiencing many storms in various industries, everyone was a little more stable. At this time, Even the slightest wind would make the people of the Tang dynasty panic. Plus, Wei Zhang in the imperial court. It would be strange if Li Shimin would do such a thing. Shopkeeper, are you going out? When Zhang Feng took out the key and was about to lock the door, Lao Li's voice sounded behind Zhang Feng. When Zhang Feng saw that it was Li Shimin, he looked up and down at Li Shimin in surprise. Lao Li, I thought you were caught. Were you just released? What's wrong? Did you get tricked by your scoundrel friends? Or were you? Li Shimin heard this and smiled bitterly. Shopkeeper little Zhang, don't be sarcastic. I'm also very upset now. Zhang Feng instantly became curious. Half a year of contact. Zhang Feng always felt that Li Shimin was a very mysterious and capable businessman. Even when he learned that the Long Yu Dao's herbal field had suffered heavy losses, he was still so calm. This time, he was so upset because of this matter, which made Zhang Feng a little curious. Did he really just get out of prison? Zhang Feng looked around the street outside and then quickly opened the door. After pulling Li Shimin in, his mind. He hurriedly closed the door. Lao Li. Today, my shop's only to serve you. Come, take a seat. Zhang Feng bolted the door and took a stool from a table. He wiped the stool with a linen cloth on his shoulder. Take a seat first. I'll prepare a few dishes. As he spoke, Zhang Feng went into the kitchen again. Looking at Zhang Feng's back, Li Shimin's upset heart suddenly calmed down for some reason. It seemed that as long as he sat in this small tavern. Listening to Zhang Feng's calm words, his upset heart was also calmed down. Although this tavern was not as luxurious as the palace, it made Li Shimin feel inexplicably relaxed. It seemed to be because of Zhang Feng's character, and also because he and Zhang Feng had become real friends. Between friends, there was no concealment and speculation like in the imperial court. Suddenly, Li Shimin felt that his decision to leave the palace and enter this small tavern half a year ago was the right one. The friendship between gentlemen was as indifferent as water. It was also because of this indifference that Li Shimin suddenly felt that he had lived for so many years in vain. Born in the imperial family, Li Shimin did not have a real friend by his side. No. Now, Zhang Feng could be counted as one. But, if little shopkeeper Zhang could really enter the imperial court one day, would he still have a chance? Would he still have the chance to drink with Zhang Feng and open his heart to him like this? At this moment, Li Shimin did not know what to do. From his previous conversation with Zhang Feng, it seemed that he really wanted to enter the imperial court and become an official. However, he did not want to be an ordinary official. This also made Li Shimin hesitate. If Zhang Feng really knew his identity, then Li Shimin was silent. However, he also secretly made a decision in his heart. For now, he would take one step at a time. After a while, the fragrance of wine wafted over. Only then did Li Shimin slowly wake up. He looked at the 3 side dishes on the table and the big jar of wine. Zhang Feng sat opposite Li Shimin unceremoniously. Lao Li, do you remember what I said last time? The next time I come, I will treat you to the strongest wine? Of course, Li Shimin remembered this. Smelling the rich aroma of the wine, he subconsciously picked up the bowl and took a sip. However, in the next moment, Li Shimin's face suddenly turned red. He only felt as if there was a ball of fire in his throat that was rapidly surging. Cough, 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 cough. Li Shimin could not help but cough violently. I say, little brother Zhang, this wine of yours is too strong. How can it be drunk? Ha ha ha. Zhang Feng laughed and looked at Li Shimin suspiciously. Lao Li, you can't do it. Chapter 25. Li Shimin coughed a few more times. I say, this wine. How did you make it? It's all made from grain, but isn't this wine a little too strong? Li Shimin looked at the wine in the bowl with some shock. Zhang Feng glanced at Li Shimin. Isn't this wine prepared for you? You have something on your mind, and I have strong wine. Isn't this just right? Only strong wine can ease your worries. After 1 bowl, your worries will disappear. After 3 bowls, I guarantee that you won't even know what your worries are. And you know, the wine last time was only about 30 degrees, and it was diluted. But this wine today, I prepared it for you. Li Shimin looked at the wine bowl in his hand, and then looked at Zhang Feng. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and shook his head. The reason for today's troubles was because he drank too much a few days ago, and then caused the trouble. Now, seeing that the wine was stronger than last time, Li Shimin couldn't help but have a headache. When he thought of Wei Zhang, Li Shimin's temper rose. When he thought of the purpose of coming here, he couldn't help but open up. Good. Shopkeeper, with your words, I, old Li, will drink to my heart's content today. Come, let me toast you. As he spoke, Li Shimin picked up the big bowl and was about to drink. Zhang Feng's mouth twitched. He hurriedly stopped Li Shimin. If he drank like this, it would be strange if he didn't drink until something bad happened. Okay. Lao Li. I know you're not in a good mood today. Li Shimin's stubborn temper rose. He glared at him. What, do you think you're not worthy to drink with Lao Li? No matter how strong this wine is, no matter how high the alcohol content is, do you think Lao Li's reputation of not getting drunk after 1,000 cups is just a bluff? Come. The innkeeper brought the wine. Whoever gets drunk first will stand at the entrance of this tavern and shout that he can't do it. What do you think? Hey! Zhang Feng was despised for a moment, and he was instantly annoyed. Bring it on. I don't believe that I can't outdrink you. Come, we still have 3 jaws of wine. Let's get drunk today and resolve the knot in your heart. What do you think? Zhang Feng was a little proud. He took out the remaining 3 jars of wine from the wine cellar in the kitchen. But after thinking about it, Zhang Feng still took 2 jars. This wine was at least 50 to 60 degrees. If he were to get 3 more jars, it wouldn't be drinking today, it would be courting death. The wine bowls were filled. The 2 of them drank a full bowl. Then Zhang Feng smacked his lips and drank. Good wine. Lao Li, let's make it clear today. If you can walk out of my store with your 2 legs, I will do whatever you want me to do. How about that? Li Shimin twitched the corner of his mouth. He just drank a bowl. At this moment, from his throat to his stomach, there was a burning pain. But that kind of refreshing feeling made Li Shimin want to roar. However, after hearing Zhang Feng's words, Li Shimin's eyebrows twitched fiercely. He couldn't drink too much. If he drank too much and spilled all his secrets, it would be a big joke. Although Li Shimin's tone was arrogant, he couldn't help but feel a little guilty in his heart. Come. Fill it up. Let's drink. I, Lao Li, will make it clear today. If you get drunk, I, Lao Li, will help you close the door. Hearing that, Zhang Feng was also happy. He held up the wine jar and filled it for both of them. Since the last time he drank with Li Shimin, Zhang Feng saw that Li Shimin and Li Shimin praised this wine so much, so he deliberately increased the alcohol content of the wine. The wine in ancient times was all rice wine. There was no alcohol content. And judging from the state of the 2 of them last time, this wine was very popular. He just didn't know if this alcohol content could be accepted by the people of this era. Zhang Feng dared to guarantee that if this wine could be mass-produced and sold, it would definitely beat all the wines in the world. Li Shimin held up the wine bowl and couldn't help but be stunned. Just now, he was a little angry and was indeed a little worried. Now, smelling the wine on the wine bowl, the wine that seemed as clear as water, made him a little shocked. Just smelling it was already so intoxicating. If he really drank all 3 jars of wine on the table, then... Gulp! Li Shimin couldn't help but swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Damn, he hadn't drunk it yet and he was already a little dizzy. This wine, could it be that he would really get drunk today? Looking at Zhang Feng's eyes, Li Shimin gritted his teeth, closed his eyes and gulped down a few mouthfuls of wine. The key was that he couldn't admit defeat. Cough, vomit. But when a bowl of wine went down his stomach, Li Shimin couldn't help but cough violently. 2 bowls. This was only 2 bowls of wine. Damn, he couldn't drink anymore. Li Shimin had a feeling that if there was half a bowl of wine, he would definitely slip under the table. At this time, he only felt that the sky was spinning and his ears couldn't help but buzz. And Zhang Feng was also shocked by Li Shimin's behavior. Could it be that he could really drink? Zhang Feng hurried forward and patted Li Shimin's back. Look at you if you can't drink. Why are you acting all high and mighty? If you can't drink, then so be it. You're still acting in front of me. I know you have something on your mind. If you have something on your mind, then say it. Just say it. It'll be fine. Why are you doing this? Come, drink this bowl of water. Come, look, it'll wake you up. Li Shimin coughed violently again, picked up the water, and drank 2 big bowls. Only then did he feel slightly better. He panted for a moment. Li Shimin smacked his lips, took a deep breath and said, Brother Zhang Feng, I'm suffering in my heart. Chapter 26. Li Shimin decided to open up. He drank another bowl of wine in one breath and sighed. Brother Zhang Feng, let me tell you a story. There's an old butler in my house. He and I built our business together, but he's good at everything, except for the fact that he likes to restrain me. If there's a problem with my appearance, he'll restrain and persuade me regardless of the occasion. Just like last time, I drank some wine and went back on a whim. I said I wanted to buy a batch of chickens and ducks to get rid of the worm eggs in the medicine shop, but... Li Shimin took a deep breath. He clinked his wine bowl with Zhang Feng's, but this time, he didn't finish it in one gulp. Instead, he took a small sip and continued. His personality is too straightforward, and his temper is too stubborn. You say, I'm still the master of the house, right? It's fine if it happens once or twice, but if it happens again and again, no one can stand it. Today, because of the chickens and ducks, the old butler pointed at me and scolded me for half a day in front of old Cheng and the others. Not only that, he also said that there's no basis for this in the ancient book. He also scolded me in public for not paying attention to my image and sneaking out to drink, which is beneath my dignity. To be honest, I don't mind him scolding me. I also know that this will make me remember myself. With him constantly reminding me, I'll be able to notice my own problems. But, in the long run, I'll go crazy. Zhang Feng couldn't help but understand. Since you think he's annoying, why don't you just send him away? Do you have to be so conflicted? Give him a sum of money and let him enjoy his life. Isn't this the best of both worlds? Not only that, you'll also be free. When the time comes, you can do whatever you want. No one can say anything bad about you, and no one will dare to say no to you. Isn't that good? Li Shimin couldn't help but shake his head at Zhang Feng's words. If it were an ordinary butler, I wouldn't be so troubled. But this butler was brought here by me from my hometown. He has witnessed everything I've done. If I were to do this to him at this time, I really can't do it. Moreover, other than being a little talkative, this butler is very good in everything else. He is loyal, and I don't think there is anyone in the world who can compare to him. If I really drive him away like this, not only will the people in my hometown point fingers at me, but my current subordinates will also be afraid of me. I will also have a bad reputation of not tolerating people. You also know that things like reputation are still very important to people like us. This is what annoys me the most. If I chase them away, I'm afraid that my reputation will be tarnished. If I don't chase them away, I'll feel very uncomfortable. Zhang Feng was a little surprised. It was his first time hearing Lao Li talk about someone like that. And he even gave him such a high evaluation. However, when Lao Li finished his last sentence, Zhang Feng finally understood what Lao Li was worried about. He was complaining that the butler was long-winded, and the kind that would not stop nagging. However, this kind of person reminded Zhang Feng of someone. Wei Zhang. Weren't Wei Zhang and Li Shimin like this? How many times had Wei Zhang pointed at Li Shimin's nose and scolded him? There were even such records in the history of the Tang dynasty. Li Shimin once got a bird and liked it very much. However, he was afraid that Wei Zhang would find out. However, one time, Wei Zhang seemed to have found out and barged into the harem without any notice. In the end, Li Shimin directly hid the beloved bird in his arms and smothered it to death. Even so, Li Shimin did not blame Wei Zhang. Why? Wasn't it because Wei Zhang tried to persuade Li Shimin not to be greedy for pleasure from various historical illusions? Most importantly, in history, Li Shimin cried a few times after losing Wei Zhang. He even personally wrote inscriptions for Wei Zhang and wrote inscriptions for him. From then on, there was no one like Wei Zhang by his side. Even the few popular people around him could not do what Wei Zhang did. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng interrupted Li Shimin and said, Lao Li, since you said so, then I will analyze it for you. I also have some suggestions. Li Shimin gratefully clasped his fist and put on a humble attitude. Then thank you, Brother Xiao Zhang. If you can think of an idea, then I will definitely thank Lao Li. Ahem. After pondering for a while, Zhang Feng said, what I mean is, keep this person. Not only keep him, but also put him in an important position. Put him in an important position? Keep him. This, Zhang Feng looked at Li Shimin's confused face and immediately put down the wine bowl in his hand. He pretended to be mysterious and said, before I tell you the reason, let me tell you a few things that I understand. While talking, Zhang Feng stood up and looked out of the window. He said lightly, see the worthy and follow the same example. See the unworthy and introspect. Among the three, there is bound to be a teacher. Choose the good one and follow it, and change the bad one. With the mirror as a mirror, you can correct your clothes. With history as a mirror, you can know the rise and fall. With people as a mirror, you can know the gains and losses. Chapter 27. Buzz. Li Shimin couldn't help but tremble all over. His eyes, which were originally a little dejected and humbly seeking advice, were now filled with astonishment. Oh my God! This sentence was actually so philosophical? No. This wasn't a philosophy, it was a saying of wisdom. At this time, Li Shimin only felt that his scalp was tingling. The blood in his body was swelling and excited. Every word that Zhang Feng said was surging in his heart, one after another. Every wave would make him feel different. Was it really said by this young man who was only 20 years old? If he hadn't seen Zhang Feng say it himself, Li Shimin would definitely think that Zhang Feng read it from some ancient book. Otherwise, with his decades of experience, he couldn't sum up such a great truth. How could a 20-year-old person who didn't go out of the house say such words with emotion? Was he a monster? Or was he really a person who had cultivated on Mount Wutai for 5,000 years as he said? Zhang Feng's handsome face and kind smile actually contained such a huge amount of Confucian thought? How did he do it? This was the talent that Li Shimin needed. The talent that the Tang dynasty needed. At this time, Li Shimin was more certain that he had to accept Zhang Feng's idea. If he got Zhang Feng, he would definitely make the Tang dynasty prosper forever. He exhaled deeply. Li Shimin murmured, take people as a mirror and know the gains and losses. Take history as a mirror and know the rise and fall. Good. Shopkeeper, what you said is true. I really like this sentence. Li Shimin blurted out the word, I, when he was excited. In an instant, he was shocked and broke out in a cold sweat. Then he quickly covered it up. Shopkeeper, I really admire you to the point of prostrating myself before you. Just based on what you've said today, you deserve a bow from me, Lao Li. As he spoke, Li Shimin actually stood up and respectfully bowed like a Confucian scholar. This was the first time he treated someone so seriously since he became the king of Qin. This was enough to prove just how high Zhang Feng's position in his heart was. Most importantly, Li Shimin desperately wanted to lay his cards on the table with Zhang Feng. But how could Zhang Feng let him do that? He hurriedly helped Li Shimin up. Zhang Feng was not surprised that a merchant could understand this set of Confucian principles, and it was even a famous saying that had been personally spoken by Li Shimin. For a merchant to be able to understand so much and be so moved was not strange at all. Even when the emperor saw this during the pilgrimage, Zhang Feng dared to guarantee that Li Shimin would be impressed. This was because Li Shimin had yet to say it out loud. Zhang Feng used both hands to help Li Shimin up. Ayaya, Lao Li, what are you doing? Between the two of us, if you do this, you're really treating me as an outsider. I'm just saying it casually, don't take it seriously. You're simply trying to make me suffer. Li Shimin looked at Zhang Feng and could not help but smile. Brother Zhang, you're treating me as an outsider. It's precisely because I, Lao Li, treat you as a friend that I should treat you like this. Otherwise, I, Lao Li, will feel uneasy. Actually, Li Shimin was speaking the truth. Today, if he did not come here, how could he untie the knot in his heart? Moreover, the matter between him and Wei Zhang today, anyone could see that something big was going to happen. If it was not handled well, he would really become a loner. Zhang Feng's one sentence solved the crisis, And he even said such wise words. How could Li Shimin not be grateful? And it was precisely because of this that Li Shimin was able to understand Zhang Feng's temperament in this half a year. Therefore, after hearing Zhang Feng's words this time, the shock in his heart was slightly reduced. Brother Zhang, Lao Li, I have already engraved these words in my heart, but, forgive me for being stupid, but what does these words have to do with the matter I'm talking about? Zhang Feng shook his head. Lao Li, think about it carefully, think about it carefully. That housekeeper you mentioned, what he said to you, is it not based on people? And most importantly, you said that his conduct is good, and he is upright and plain-spoken. This proves that his position in your heart must be very important. Furthermore, this old housekeeper has played a significant role in your business. Li Shimin was shocked. How could he guess that? He could not help but nod. That's right. This housekeeper of mine is indeed like that. He has played a vital role in my business. Without him, many of my businesses would not have been able to do so well. Zhang Feng slapped his thigh. Then, isn't that enough? This person, not only can you not let him go. Instead, you have to put him in an important position. Otherwise, every time you make a major mistake in your business, no one will be able to remind you at the crucial moment. At this point, Zhang Feng lowered his voice and said in a low voice, "Let me tell you about a person. Do you know Wei Zhang?" Li Shimin was slightly stunned. This time, he came to solve Wei Zhang's problem. Li Shimin could not help but say hurriedly, "I have indeed heard of Wei Zhang." Chapter 28. In fact, Zhang Feng had already made it very clear. Li Shimin had already understood the importance of this. If he really let Wei Zhang leave at this time, the imperial court would indeed be a lot quieter in the future. But he would not be able to hear anything he did not want to hear anymore. There would only be bootlickers around him. This was a major drawback for his ambition and the future development of the Tang dynasty. And most importantly, as Zhang Feng said, this was a lesson learned from others. Zhang Feng saw that Li Shimin was deep in thought. He patted Li Shimin on the shoulder and said, "Lao Li, think about it. What is the similarity between Wei Zhang and the old butler you mentioned? They are the same kind of people?" "Yes. Both of them are stubborn and the kind of people who are upright and can't tolerate sand in their eyes. Not only that, both of them are relatively straightforward. Wei Zhang's situation is very similar to the current emperor and you. The emperor deliberately avoided Wei Zhang, but he did not know that Deng Yu was building a cart behind closed doors. What is the difference between this and you? If this goes on, do you think there will be people like Wei Zhang around the emperor in the long run?" Li Shimin's face could not help but become serious. Zhang Feng continued, "The current emperor did a little better than you. Although he treated Wei Zhang like this is understandable. This Wei Zhang used to be Li Jianqing's subordinate and should have been executed. However, the emperor did not execute him. Instead, he put him in an important position. This is the first reason. The second reason is that the emperor is open-minded. He knows that honest words are unpleasant to the ear. Therefore, although he is indeed a little displeased many times, and this may be the case for anyone else, how did the emperor deal with it? But the emperor put Wei Zhang in an important position. This is the difference between you and the emperor. It is that you are narrow-minded. But I'm not saying that you're narrow-minded. I'm just making a comparison. Think about it. The fact that His Majesty can keep Wei Zhang by his side is enough to show how benevolent and righteous His Majesty is." Li Shimin knew that Zhang Feng was talking about him. But when he heard Zhang Feng talk about righteousness and benevolence again, he couldn't help but feel a little smug. He continued, "And you're right. His Majesty is indeed wise. How can a commoner like me compare to him?" Zhang Feng didn't notice Li Shimin's strange behavior. He clinked his wine bowl with Li Shimin's and continued, "That's right. That's the theory, but there's another meaning behind it. His Majesty can be wise and careless, and can care for the world. Can't you teach His Majesty that he can't tolerate a small steward? If you really dare to drive him away, I can guarantee that your business will fail in less than 3 years. And if you don't drive him away and use him again, then the people around you will follow suit. Such talents will appear endlessly by your side." "That's right. That's right. Li Shimin slammed the table excitedly. Then, he picked up his wine bowl and gulped down a few mouthfuls. What you said makes sense. Since the emperor can be so tolerant, I only need to learn from His Majesty's way of doing things. There's nothing wrong with that. Brother Zhang, thank you for your priceless advice today. Once I go back, I'll put my old steward in an important position. That way, the neighbors will. Zhang Feng patted Li Shimin's shoulder sincerely. Lao Li, you finally understand the logic behind it. Now, the knot in your heart has been untied, right? If you still have any doubts or don't understand anything, feel free to ask. I have enough wine, and I don't have any other strong points, but I've lived for a long time and know a lot. Good. If there's anything I don't understand, or if there's anything I'm confused about, I'll definitely ask you more. Li Shimin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Zhang Feng was good at everything, but he loved to act tough and show off. This was also where Zhang Feng was interesting and had a bright spot. The two of them chatted as they toasted each other. Soon, the sky was getting dark, and the light in the tavern gradually dimmed. Zhang Feng lit the oil lamp, and in an instant, the entire tavern was lit up again. The table in front of the two of them was already a mess. Even though Zhang Feng's alcohol tolerance was very good, his footsteps were a little light at this time. Li Shimin shook his dizzy head and looked at the time. He stood up shakily and said, Brother Zhang. Brother. It's not early anymore. I'll go back first. Listening to your words today is really better than 10 years of reading the sage books. I won't disturb you anymore. Let's get drunk another day. Zhang Feng smacked his lips as if he hadn't had enough. However, seeing Li Shimin's current state, if he continued to drink, this guy would definitely be punished by his wife to kneel on the washboard when he went back. Therefore, he didn't force him to stay. He clasped his fist and said, Then how about I call a car and send you back? No. Wait. Please wait. How could Li Shimin dare to let Zhang Feng send him back? As he hurriedly spoke, he supported himself against the wall and staggered out of the tavern. However, at this time, Zhang Feng grabbed Li Shimin's arm and said, Wait. If you go back like this, you'll definitely be punished by your wife to kneel. Fine. Since we're all brothers, I'll help you. As he spoke, Zhang Feng patted his chest loudly. I'll give you a set of ancient calligraphy. Chapter 29. Li Shimin was stunned. Bestowing him with a treasure of calligraphy? Usually, it was others who begged him to bestow upon others. This time, this shopkeeper actually wanted to bestow him with a treasure of calligraphy. In an instant, Li Shimin's interest was piqued. He also wanted to see what Zhang Feng could write. Although Li Shimin was not a well-read person, he had dabbled in the principles of governing a country recorded in ancient books. Thinking of this, Li Shimin clasped his fist and said, Good. Then I'll have to trouble Brother Zhang. While speaking, Zhang Feng pulled Li Shimin back to the pub again and then hurriedly spread out the brush, ink, paper and inkstone on a new table. Li Shimin looked at Zhang Feng's posture and couldn't help but feel a little happy. Good fellow, this posture, not bad. Brother Zhang, I don't know what kind of calligraphy you're going to bestow upon me. Shoo! Zhang Feng's expression was slightly serious. He took a deep breath, then picked up the brush and began to paint. Li Shimin also curiously stared at Zhang Feng's calligraphy. However, when he saw a paragraph written by Zhang Feng, he couldn't help but stare at it. Zhang Feng's calligraphy was cursive, and it was a wild cursive. Li Shimin couldn't help but read in amazement. Let people be virtuous, know how to make good use of people. Open up a path of speech, accept advice without foundation. Put people as the foundation, deduct lightly, reward the virtuous. Diligent in managing the household, know when to advance and retreat, good system. Li Shimin was stunned. Calligraphy. Very good. And it could be said that Zhang Feng's calligraphy was really good. But this was not the main point. The main point was that the content of Zhang Feng's calligraphy. It actually contained the principles of governing a country. Although this was only a method of governing an industry written by Zhang Feng, Li Shimin saw a magnificent way of governing a country from this calligraphy. Talent. This was a goddamn talent given to the Tang dynasty by God. Li Shimin was shocked. And under his gaze, Zhang Feng changed the brush to a small soft pen and wrote on the side. In the 2nd year of Zhenguan, in the 5th month of the Dinghai lunar calendar, the beginning of summer, Li asked Mr. Zhang Feng's calligraphy in the small pub in the east of Chang'an City. Looking at this small line of characters, Li Shimin's eyes could not help but twitch. You were the one who first proposed to give it to me? Now how did it turn out like this? Ha! Zhang Feng put down the brush and then took out a seal from his chest. He blew a breath of air and then stamped it on the word, Zhen. Then, he stared at Li Shimin. Lao Li, come. Take this calligraphy. I, Zhang Feng, believe that if you take good care of it and make a set of family rules, it will be enough to guarantee that your family business will be worry-free for 100 years. Li Shimin's mouth twitched. I'll have to trouble you, shopkeeper. Your calligraphy is really impeccable. And I, Lao Li, understand the meaning between the lines. Thank you in advance. While talking, Zhang Feng casually rolled up the calligraphy and handed it to Li Shimin. Lao Li, when you go back, spend some money to have this calligraphy. It's best to put it in the ancestral hall or in the study. This is a treasure that can be passed down for generations to come. You must cherish it. Li Shimin's hand that was holding the calligraphy trembled. This calligraphy, I will cherish it. If you become successful in the future, don't forget about me, a small businessman. Zhang Feng couldn't take it anymore and glared at him. Old Li, I don't like what you're saying. What's the relationship between us? We're the closest brothers. If I really become successful, I can't forget you, Lao Li. Yes. Ha ha ha. We're brothers. While talking, the two of them walked out of the shop with their arms around each other's shoulders. Li Shimin took out 2 gold ingots from his chest and stuffed them into Zhang Feng's hand. Brother, wait. I'm leaving. While talking, he walked away unsteadily. Zhang Feng weighed the gold ingots in his hand and clasped his fist. Lao Li, why don't I call a sedan chair for you? No. You wait. I'm happy to be free. While walking, I can have some peace and quiet and think about what happened today. While talking, Li Shimin couldn't help but quicken his pace. At this time, Li Shimin had almost sobered up. Except for the fact that his head was heavy and his feet were light, Li Shimin was really fine. However, Zhang Feng couldn't take it anymore. After closing the shop door, he didn't even bother to tidy up the house. He staggered straight to the bedroom in the backyard and fell asleep on the bed. On the other side, after Li Shimin passed the entrance of the East Market, the Imperial Guards and the Golden Guards in plain clothes immediately surrounded Li Shimin. Li Shimin was also sitting in the sedan chair. Everyone quickly disappeared in the afterglow of the setting sun. In the sedan chair, Li Shimin recalled every conversation he had with Zhang Feng before, especially the few words Zhang Feng said about using others as a warning, and the content of the calligraphy in his hand. Li Shimin couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. Knowing Zhang Feng, Li Shimin felt that besides the incident at the Xuanwu Gate, this was the most correct thing he had done. Especially the calligraphy in his hand. Not only did it contain the solution to the problem with Wei Zheng, but it also proposed a few guidelines for governing the country. Thinking of this, Li Shimin waved his hand and ordered. Pass down the order, change the route and go to Wei Zheng's residence. Furthermore, it was at this time. Wei Shuyu hurriedly asked, Uncle Quan, is this true? Young master, old master, please go and take a look. His Majesty has left the palace in plain clothes. Old master, please hurry and receive the emperor. Wei Zheng was dumbfounded. He was just about to look for the emperor, but he did not expect the emperor to come so soon. Wei Zheng tidied his clothes and waved his hand with a grave expression. Let's go and receive the emperor. At the entrance of the Wei mansion. At this moment, a large number of imperial guards and imperial guards in plain clothes stood upright on both sides of a sedan chair. At the entrance of the Wei mansion, the obedient servants knelt on the ground, trembling all over. A moment later, the door of the Wei mansion creaked open and Wei Zheng hurried out. As soon as he stepped out, he saw a familiar face standing in front of the sedan chair. Rather than a familiar face, it was more accurate to say that he was Li Shimin's bodyguard. Lu Sanquan. When he saw this person, Wei Zheng understood that the emperor was really here. This old subject, Wei Zheng, welcomes your majesty. Wei Zhang, Wei Shuyu, and all the servants of the Wei mansion hurriedly knelt. Rise. Li Shimin seemed to be in a good mood. When he got out of the sedan chair, he pretended not to see Wei Zheng's stern expression and patted Wei Zheng's shoulder. Beloved official Wei, let's find a place to have a drink? Your Majesty, I'm not feeling well and can't drink. Wei Zhang rejected him without hesitation. However, Li Shimin did not mind. Then, let's find a place to sit. We have something to say. Wei Shuyu was shocked. At the entrance of the Wei mansion, everyone was shocked. They even wondered if there was something wrong with their ears. Old Master actually dared to speak to the emperor like that? Not only was the emperor not angry, he even seemed to be happy. What was going on? Smelling the faint smell of alcohol in the air, everyone could not help but be dumbfounded again. Could it be that the emperor was drunk? However, they could only think about it. Wei Shuyu took a deep breath as she looked at the backs of Li Shimin and Wei Zhang. Pass down my orders. No one is to mention a word about what happened tonight. One of the servants looked at the emperor who had disappeared into the night and asked, Young master, this is rare. Upgrading the Wei mansion? Wei Shuyu glared at the servant. If you want to die, go ahead. Ah. Chapter 31. In Wei Zheng's study. At this moment, only Li Shimin and Wei Zhang were there. Wei Zhang couldn't figure out why Li Shimin would come to him at this time. Moreover, he had left the palace without permission and disappeared for half a day at night. Li Shimin didn't say anything. He just flipped through the thick documents on the desk and couldn't help but feel a little emotional. Wei Zhang, I've wronged you today. I really know why you're here today, but I feel that your honest words are unpleasant to the ears. I've been muddle-headed. Wei Zhang was stunned. He had thought of many reasons why the emperor would come, but he didn't expect the emperor to say such a thing. At this moment, Li Shimin continued, Today, I've come here for 3 things. First, from now on, you're free to read all the memorials and documents submitted by the Secretariat and other departments. Wei Zhang was stunned. It was like a bolt from the blue. He even wondered if he had heard it wrong. Wei Zhang couldn't help but look up at Li Shimin in confusion. I didn't accept my fate on the spur of the moment. If you think there's anything wrong, you can tell me. Today, I did leave the palace, but after sitting for an afternoon, I happened to hear some good words. With the mirror as a mirror, you can correct your clothes. With history as a mirror, you can know the rise and fall. With people as a mirror, you can know the gains and losses. I feel that this priceless advice was bestowed upon the 2 of us by the heavens. Therefore, I've decided, and I'll announce it to the world in the morning court tomorrow. What I lack is a minister like you who can advise me directly. If everyone around me is like you, the Tang dynasty will definitely surpass the Qin Emperor and the Han dynasty. Li Shimin even stood up when he spoke of his excitement. At this moment, Wei Zhang was already in tears. The emperor finally understood. To be able to say such words, it meant that his previous advice had been effective. What kind of blessing was this for the common people of the world? Although his current position was only the secretary, if it was really like what Li Shimin said at this time, then his power. Wei Zhang immediately knelt down. Your Majesty. This old official is terrified. This old subject. What? Do you think my resignation this time is child's play? Do you want me to issue an edict now for the officials to come and bear witness? Li Shimin pretended to be unhappy and said. Wei Zhang was scared out of his wits. He hurriedly waved his hands. No, this old official is not. This old official feels that. How can he be qualified to take on such a heavy responsibility? Wei Zhang was so anxious that tears streamed down his face. He knew what this decision meant. This meant that the emperor had completely taken him as his confidant. After seeing the displeasure on Li Shimin's face, Wei Zhang hurriedly knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Li Shimin. This old subject thanks your Majesty for your kindness. This old subject swears that I will not disappoint your Majesty. I will sacrifice my life for your Majesty. This old subject has repeatedly spoken out and talked back to your majesty in public. Not only did your majesty not punish me, but your majesty thinks so highly of me. This old subject is terrified. This old subject is terrified. This old subject is terrified. This old subject, as he spoke, Wei Zheng's voice was choked with sobs. Looking at Wei Zhang, Li Shimin did not feel good, but he also thought of what Zhang Feng said before. He could not help but have mixed feelings. He was even more glad that he came to see Wei Zhang tonight. He was also glad that he was able to meet Zhang Feng in the marketplace. If it wasn't for the fact that Zhang Feng was able to say these words today, perhaps he would still be pondering whether or not to dismiss Wei Zhang. Thinking of this, Li Shimin could not help but sigh in his heart. Fortunately, the Tang dynasty had a genius like Zhang Feng and a minister like Wei Zhang. If he could not surpass the emperor of the Han dynasty, then he, Li Shimin, would really let down the people of the world. Well, my dear minister, you don't have to be like this. In the future, if I do something wrong, you can do what you should do. But today, I will give you a secret order. As he spoke, Li Shimin's tone suddenly changed. He became majestic again. I order you to rest at the hour of the evening from now on. Otherwise, I will punish you for your great disrespect. As soon as he entered the study, Li Shimin understood everything. Although he did not know what time Wei Zhang worked every night, judging from the thickness of these documents, it was definitely not less than midnight. In the long run, how could Wei Zhang, who was already old, stand it? He did not want to lose a minister like Wei Zhang who could advise him. And he was someone who could get such a high evaluation from Zhang Feng. Hearing this, Wei Zhang could not help but be stunned. Your Majesty, you can't do this. The Tang dynasty has just been stabilized, and the drought in Longyu Road is serious. I have made up my mind on this matter. Don't talk about it anymore. Later, I will order Wei Shuyu to supervise this matter. If this matter is not finished, there is still tomorrow. Why do you have to do this? Your health is more important. Li Shimin interrupted Wei Zhang, but his voice suddenly softened as he said the last few words. He knew Wei Zhang's stubbornness, and he was worried about Wei Zhang's health, so he came up with this plan. However, at this moment, Li Shimin suddenly remembered something and asked, By the way, my dear minister, how old is Shuyu? Where does she work? Chapter 32. Wei Zhang was slightly taken aback when he heard that. Li Shimin continued, Speaking of which, Shuyu is about the same age as Cheng Qian, isn't he? I heard that you let him study Confucianism, and then he became a disciple of an eccentric? I am guilty. Li Shimin waved his hand. That's enough. There's no need for that here. Today, I brought some good wine. Let's talk while we drink? As you wish. The two of them landed. Wei Zhang hurriedly ordered people to gather the treasured dishes at home and cook some. But Li Shimin looked at the things on the table and felt a little emotional. It was too cold. Was he his official? Li Shimin couldn't help but feel a wave of sadness in his heart. My dear official, do you know why I gave 2 decrees in a row? Wei Zhang looked at Li Shimin personally pouring wine for him and hurriedly cupped his hands. I don't know. First, I hope you take care of your health. I don't want to hear that you fall ill one day. Second, it's time for Shuyu to train. On one hand he can earn some money. On the other hand, my daughter. Your Majesty. At this moment, Wei Zhang finally understood Li Shimin's intentions. He was going to grant a marriage. But Wei Zhang interrupted Li Shimin and immediately knelt down. I'm afraid. How could my son deserve such a great favor? Your Majesty, please take back the decrees. Hearing that, Li Shimin smacked his lips twice. He didn't mention it again. He knew Wei Zhang's temper. If he continued to talk, this stubborn donkey would definitely fight to the death. After thinking about it, Li Shimin could only give up. However, Li Shimin looked at the dishes on the table and asked, My dear official, I remember that your monthly allowance is about 10,000 coins, right? Why are you so short of money? He had seen poor people. However, he had never seen anyone as poor as Wei Zhang. At this time, he wanted to find Wei Zhang for a drink. He also wanted to see what Wei Zhang's daily life was like. However, he never expected that after rummaging through his stomach, there would only be 3 dry goods on the table. a plate of dried bacon, a plate of dried tofu, and a plate of pickled vegetables. From this, it could be seen how poor Wei Zheng's daily life was. Your Majesty, although my monthly salary is 10,000 coins, there have been a lot of people from the Longyu Dao in Chang'an City recently. So, all right, we understand. Didn't we send people to prepare porridge and make proper arrangements? Why did you? Forget it. I won't ask about this anymore. With Shuyu's help, you'll feel a little better. Also, you're the Lord Protector Zhang of the Tang Dynasty. You're our face. Don't be so stingy when it comes to spending money. When it comes to providing relief to the disaster victims, just tell me in the future and I'll reimburse you. You must pay attention to your own image. If outsiders know about this, won't they say that I, Li Shimin, treat my loyal officials unfairly? When Li Shimin put the blame on him, Wei Zheng's expression suddenly changed. He hurriedly knelt down. Li Shimin persuaded him in every possible way. Your Majesty, I'll remember it. Li Shimin took the initiative to change the topic again. He asked lightly, My dear official, how many years has it been since we drank together like this? Wei Zhang pondered for a moment and then said, Never. Do you know why we're able to figure it out today? Wei Zhang shook his head in confusion. Li Shimin continued, Perhaps you should know about it. As he spoke, Li Shimin raised his wine glass and clinked it with Wei Zhang's. With the embarrassment of drinking in Taiji Palace last time, Wei Zhang was very careful this time, but he still choked on the wine. After panting for a moment, he couldn't help but think of a person. Zhang Feng, the shopkeeper of the small tavern that he mentioned on the night of eating the worm pupa? Could it be that your Majesty is talking about the shopkeeper of the small tavern, Zhang Feng? That's right. Today, we were indeed extremely annoyed and secretly left the palace. Not only this time, but we've also gone out many times with Zhang Sun and Yao Jin. If you know, you'll definitely say that we're not doing our job properly. However, the one who dealt with the locust plague and talked about it, as well as the Turkic snow disaster and the layout of the surrounding areas, was this shopkeeper. Buzz! Wei Zhang couldn't help but hear an explosion in his mind. Although he had guessed before, he didn't expect that all of this was guessed by this shopkeeper of the marketplace. How is this possible? Your Majesty, is this true? Wei Zhang was shocked. How could he not be shocked by such a thing? To be able to predict the locust plague in Longyu and the situation in the surrounding areas. Even the spies they had planted all year round didn't know about these things. How could a mere shopkeeper do this? Looking at the shocked Wei Zhang, Li Shimin couldn't help but feel pleased. At this moment, he finally understood how pleased Zhang Feng felt when Zhang Feng talked about this. He couldn't help but reveal everything to Wei Zhang. Since he had chosen to believe in Wei Zhang, why not tell Wei Zhang everything in his heart? This would show how magnanimous I am. As time went by, 4 hours later, Li Shimin was drinking tea comfortably as he looked calmly at the confused Wei Zhang. My beloved subject. Do you know that leaving the palace this time is also the third thing that we want to talk about? Your subject doesn't know. Ha ha ha. Li Shimin laughed heartily and then took out a bamboo tube from behind him as if it was a treasure. He said mysteriously, My beloved subject, let me show you a treasure. Maybe His Majesty went to drink with Lord Zhang Sun because he was bored? Yes. I often see Lord Cheng and Lord Zhang Sun secretly meeting His Majesty in the study. Maybe when His Majesty was bored, he must have. At this time, Empress Zhang Sun was anxious. It had been 10 hours. She had almost turned the entire palace upside down, but she could not find His Majesty. Where on earth did His Majesty go? If people knew that His Majesty was missing, what would happen? Wouldn't the palace be in chaos? How could that be? More importantly, Zhang Sun Wuji, Chang Yaojin, Fang Xianling, and Du Ruhui had not seen His Majesty. Then where could His Majesty go? Guards, pass on my decree. You have 2 hours. If you can't find His Majesty within 2 hours, seal off Chang'an City immediately. Send out all the Imperial Guards and Jinwu Guards. You must find His Majesty before tonight. Yes. All of you better think carefully. His Majesty is fooling around. Don't tell me that all of you are going to do the same? If that's the case, the order in the palace will be better. Empress Zhong's son was really angry. At this time, her almond-shaped eyes were filled with tears. She knew that His Majesty often sneaked out of the palace, but basically, he would come back in 3 to 4 hours. However, this time, he had been out for at least 10 hours. It was already 9 in the morning. Why hadn't he come back yet? If something happened to His Majesty, then Empress Zhong's son didn't dare to think too much. She hurriedly issued a few more orders. At this moment, Zhong's son Wuji hurried to Taiji Palace. Empress, don't be impatient. Zhong's son Wuji winked at Zhong's son. Empress Zhong's son seemed to understand something. She waved her hand and said, "Everyone leave. Find His Majesty immediately." After a while, everyone left. Only Zhong's son Wuji and his sister were left in the study. At this time, Empress Zhong's son showed her weak side. "Brother, where do you think second brother has gone? It's already 9 in the morning. Why hasn't he come back yet?" Zhong's son Wuji's head was about to explode. When Empress Zhong's son came to find him, he immediately inquired about the spies. Almost all the shops around Zhang Feng's tavern were opened by spies from the palace. After asking around, he found out that something had happened. The emperor had already left when the sun had set. What time was it? In these few hours, even an ant would be able to walk from the East Market to the Imperial Palace. Let alone His Majesty? And why didn't His Majesty's subordinates say anything? Could it be that something had really happened? Zhong's son Wuji couldn't help but panic. He hurriedly went to the palace. At this time, seeing Empress Zhong's son crying, Zhong's son Wuji was helpless. "Sister, don't cry. Don't cry, okay? I've sent people to secretly search Chong and city. I believe, brother, His Majesty is messing around. Are you going to do the same?" Tell me, every time His Majesty goes out of the palace, does he go drinking with you? This. Chapter 34. At this moment, the entire palace was in chaos. The entire imperial palace was brightly lit. Squads of imperial guards and chamberlains of imperial insignia were frantically searching for something. Even the guards of Chong'an City were mobilized along the palace and near the city gates that extended to Chong'an City. They were frantically searching for something. As the search continued, Empress Zhong's son couldn't help but look more and more anxious. At this moment, Chang Yaojin, Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, and the others all hurried to Taiji Palace. Looking at the anxious Empress Zhong's son, everyone looked at each other in dismay. Everyone knew that the emperor didn't go out to drink or go to a brothel. Instead, he went to Zhang Feng's tavern. However, wasn't this a little too long? Could it be that the emperor was drunk? Chang Yaojin was puzzled. "Old Hey, let me ask you. Last time you went to the tavern with the emperor, did the manager say anything in the end?" Chang Yaojin scratched the back of his head. He was a little confused by Zhang's son Wuji and the others' words. "Nothing. It's just... Oh, I remember." Chang Yaojin slapped his thigh excitedly. "The emperor. Ancestor. Damn it. Keep your voice down, ancestor." Zhang's son Wuji was about to cry. Zhang's son, who was eavesdropping with her sharp ears, asked in a low voice, "What did he say?" "The manager said that the next time we go there, we should treat the emperor to the strongest wine." "That's it. That's it. Then, could it be that the emperor went to the tavern to drink because he was upset and got drunk in the end?" They looked at each other and discussed. "That's impossible. I got the news that the emperor has left. And it was at sunset. Where could the emperor have gone? Could it be that after His Majesty got drunk, his guards were scared, so they found a place for His Majesty to sleep?" Everyone could not help but feel a chill run down their spines. If Wei Zheng found out about this, then... Everyone, has anyone figured out where His Majesty has gone? Right at this moment, Empress Zhong's son asked indifferently. Everyone shuddered again. Replying to the Empress, "We are slow-witted and do not know." "Then what are you waiting for? Why are you carrying me?" This. Everyone was dumbfounded. Report. At this moment, A chamberlain of imperial insignia rushed into the imperial study. Zhang Sun Wuji took the opportunity to distract himself. He shouted, "What's the matter?" Replying to the Empress, "Sirs, the Emperor has been found." What? F***CK. Where is it? Where did the Emperor go? Where is it? The Chamberlain of Imperial Insignia was dumbfounded. At this moment, when he saw all the dukes taking a step forward in unison, he could not help but shudder all over. He hurriedly lay on the ground and said in a sobbing voice, replying to the Empress, "When I was patrolling, I saw the Emperor's sedan at Scenic Wind Gate, as well as the brothers of the Chamberlain of Imperial Insignia. After confirming the news, I immediately rushed over to report it. He's back. His Majesty is really back. That's great." Empress Zhang Sun finally heaved a sigh of relief. It had been a torturous night. She had been scared out of her wits, but at this moment, her stubbornness had also surfaced. She waved her hand and said, "Send someone to Scenic Wind Gate. I want to personally welcome His Majesty back to the palace." The Chamberlain of Imperial Insignia was stunned. He did not dare to agree. Instead, he looked at Zhang Sun Wuji and the others for help. Empress Zhang Sun snorted softly. Instantly, the Chamberlain of Imperial Insignia quivered. "As you command." Then, he left as if he was running for his life. Empress Zhang Sun had always given people the impression that she was very kind and gentle. Who would have thought that such a gentle and kind woman would fly into a rage tonight? No one dared to act rashly. They could only follow the Empress's carriage to Scenic Wind Gate. However, after they left Taiji Palace, Zhang Sun Wuji secretly winked at a young eunuch. "Quickly inform His Majesty that the Empress has gone to Scenic Wind Gate." At the entrance of Scenic Wind Gate, Li Shimin sat in the sedan chair. He touched the bamboo tube in his arms and recalled everything that had happened today. From time to time, he would laugh loudly. He was pondering whether or not he should ask someone to record today's events in a book for future generations to read. This was also a kind of beautiful story. Not only would it strengthen his reputation of being a good person to others and his subjects, but it would also serve as a warning to future generations. However, at this moment, someone hurried to report. "Your Majesty." The young eunuch in the palace just reported that the Empress has personally gone to Scenic Wind Gate to welcome His Majesty. There are more than 10 officials with her. What? Li Shimin was shocked. The Empress had personally gone to Scenic Wind Gate to welcome him. And with so many officials? What was going on? At this moment, Li Shimin suddenly thought of something and asked, "What time is it now?" 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. It's over. How could it be so fast? Li Shimin slapped his forehead and hurriedly waved his hand. "Quickly, go to Scenic Wind Gate. If there's no other way, go to Scenic Wind Gate." However, at this moment, the sound of a male duck reached Li Shimin's ears. "The Empress has arrived." Chapter 35. As the voice sounded, Li Shimin couldn't avoid it. He could only embarrassedly pretend as if nothing had happened and continue walking forward. At this time, the two sides finally met in Jingfeng sect. At this time, all the chamberlains suddenly felt a sense of danger. After seeing Empress Zhang Sun and the others, the chamberlains and the imperial guards who followed Li Shimin slipped away in the dark. Some ministers even stood at the outermost circle at this time. Empress Zhang Sun slowly stepped down from the carriage and leisurely walked to the front of Li Shimin's sedan chair. Giving a grand salute, she said, "This concubine Zhang Sun respectfully invites your Majesty." Li Shimin twitched the corner of his mouth. He also slowly got out of the sedan and laughed as if nothing had happened. "Empress, it's cold at night. Get into the carriage quickly. Don't catch a cold." While talking, Li Shimin walked to the carriage with Empress Zhang Sun in his arms. His right hand, which was holding Empress Zhang Sun, kept signaling Zhang Sun Wuji and the others behind him. Zhang Sun Wuji and the others understood and hurriedly shouted, "Your Majesty, return to the palace. Everyone, disperse now." In the palace, Empress Zhangsuan's almond-shaped eyes were misty. She looked at Li Shimin without saying a word, which made Li Shimin's scalp tingle. Maid Guanyin, I've said that I really have something to do. How dare I blame your majesty? Everything your majesty has done is for the country and the people. Your majesty, you don't have to care about me. Do what you have to do. Ha! That's not right. At first, Li Shimin praised Empress Zhang's son in his heart for being so righteous. But as he listened, the atmosphere changed. He hurriedly explained, Maid Guanyin, I know you're angry with second brother, but do you know why I left the palace today? I don't know, nor do I know. As he spoke, Li Shimin told him everything about Zhang Feng. However, even so, Empress Zhang's son did not seem to have forgiven Li Shimin. She still pouted, lowered her head, and pulled at a sachet. At this moment, Li Shimin took out the bamboo tube from behind his back with great care, and said with a solemn voice, Today, I left the palace. It was also that shopkeeper who bestowed me with a family heirloom. While speaking, Li Shimin couldn't help but laugh. Empress Zhang's son looked at the bamboo tube in Li Shimin's hand with a trace of doubt in her eyes. Along the way, Li Shimin had been holding the bamboo tube with extreme caution. Now, he was saying that someone had bestowed this treasure to him? Li Shimin was secretly delighted when he saw Empress Zhangxuan's expression. He quickly unfolded the calligraphy and said, Guanyin maid, look. This is the family heirloom of our great Tangli clan, and it was something that I, your second brother, painstakingly begged for. Empress Zhangxuan's eyes suddenly widened. How are you going to deal with the matter of Wei Zheng? Chapter 36. Li Shimin thought that after saying these things, it would be enough to appease Guanyin. But he didn't expect that. Guanyin's thoughts were on this. He couldn't help it. Li Shimin was also depressed. Empress Zhang's son held Li Shimin's hand with a solemn expression and said, Second brother, although Wei Zhang has a bad temper, you know what kind of person he is. If at this time, all the officials in the world are watching your every move, if you really persuade Wei Zhang to leave, then... I shouldn't have said this, but after knowing that you were not in the palace for a few hours, I found out about this. Although I know you are upset, you can't lose this person. Li Shimin shook his head with a bitter smile. Guanyin, listen to me. Guanyin, today, I went out because of Wei Zheng's matter. You have seen the calligraphy and painting. What do you think I will do? Today, in addition to the calligraphy, I have also received a wise saying. Use the bronze as a mirror, tidy up one's clothes, and use the people as a mirror to see the gains and losses. Use history as a mirror to see the rise and fall of the people. Empress Zhang's son was shocked when she heard this. Especially after Li Shimin said, use the bronze as a mirror, tidy up one's clothes. Empress Zhang's son was shocked. Who on earth was this little shopkeeper? Could it be that he was a literary star in the sky? First, he calculated the locust plague and the Turkic snow disaster, and then the surrounding situation. Now he could say something like this. However, Li Shimin touched the back of Empress Zhangxuan's hand and said again, Actually, when the little shopkeeper said this, I knew what to do. Then, I hurriedly left the tavern and went to Wei Zheng's mansion. Your Majesty went to Wei Zheng's mansion? Yes. Knowing one's mistakes and being able to correct them is the greatest virtue. Moreover, we also know the severity of this matter. Otherwise, we wouldn't be so conflicted and anxious today. Therefore, can you guess what I said to Wei Zhang tonight? I said that I wanted to marry the little princess to that child Shu Yu, but that old antique Wei Zhang actually rejected me on the spot. At this point, Li Shimin shook his head with a bitter smile. Empress Zhang's son also covered her mouth and chuckled. Too rigid. Isn't that right? Li Shimin smiled helplessly. Not only that. Can you guess what was the dish that went with this emperor's wine? It was Wei Zhang who had racked his brains and collected a few dry goods. This made me feel uneasy. Therefore, this Zhan decreed for Shu Yu to report to the Jin Wu guards tomorrow. This Zhan will announce to the court that he will be promoted to a squad leader. This way, he will be able to help Wei Zhang. The two of them were so engrossed in their conversation that they had forgotten the time. As the two of them talked, the last of Zhangxuan's worries disappeared. Second brother, What do you plan to do about the Long U circuit? At this time, do you think it will be effective if we use the previous method on a large scale? Li Shimin hesitated. I know that I am also hesitating about this matter. May I know what Guanyin Maid thinks? Although Li Shimin had already made up his mind, he still wanted to hear Guanyin Maid's opinion. This matter is of great importance. Moreover, Tubo, Tuyuhun, and the Turkic Khaganate are all watching every move in Chang'an City. Although second brother has tried his best to cover up the drought and solve the epidemic, this is only treating the symptoms and not the root cause. Yes. Moreover, the Tuyuhun and the Tibetans still don't know about the plague of locusts. If they make such a large move, the three kingdoms will definitely learn of this matter. At that time, the Great Tang will be at a disadvantage. Then what do you think, Guanyin Maid? In my opinion, we should gather all the chickens, ducks, poultry, and pigs in Long Yu Dao. Second brother should follow the little shopkeeper's method and try it out first. If it works, it won't be too late to plan the next step. Besides, the outbreak of this locust plague is not something that can happen in a short period of time. Li Shimin could not help but look serious. I actually had this plan after the court ended today, but I couldn't make up my mind. I didn't expect Guanyin Maid to have the same idea as me. Then, I can go ahead and do it. It's not today. It should be yesterday. Empress Zhang's son speechlessly pointed to the eastern sky outside the window and said. Li Shimin was stunned. He was also shocked. How long had it been? It was dawn? Li Shimin shrugged. It did not matter. Empress Zhang's son hugged Empress Zhang's son and said, Let's watch the morning sun together. We haven't watched the morning sun like this for a long time. While talking, the two of them held hands and walked to the balcony of the attic without saying a word. They sat quietly on the ground and looked at the eastern sky and the peaceful and quiet Chang'an City at this time. Just like that. The sky turned from a dawn to a dazzling sun, slowly climbing up the big wild goose tower in Chang'an. At this time, the heavy sound of the bell also rang. Dong, dong, dong. As the morning bell rang, the entire Chang'an City was completely bright. Wisps of smoke appeared above all the houses and swirled around. Li Shimin got up and said reluctantly, Guanyin Maid, I'm going to the court. Chapter 38. Lai Feng Brothel. The largest restaurant in Chang'an City. At this time, the most expensive private room on the second floor of Lai Feng Brothel had been booked by Wei Zheng himself. Although he really didn't have any money, in order to solve the mystery in his heart, he borrowed 500 taels of silver from the emperor last night. This could be considered as an excuse for him to reject the marriage because he didn't want to owe the emperor too much. At this time, in the summer hall on the second floor of Lai Feng Brothel, Wei Zheng raised his wine cup and said with a bright smile, Come, 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 everyone. Let's raise this cup together. Let's celebrate the prosperity of the Tang dynasty. After drinking, everyone looked at the dishes on the table and frowned. Although there were only Chang Yaojin, Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, and Zhang Sun Wuji on the table at this time, the dishes were too bad, weren't they? This Lai Feng brothel looked high-end, but they only served braised tofu and stir-fried meat with bamboo shoots. Was it appropriate? Was it appropriate? However, everyone also knew that Wei Zheng was a stingy person. If Wei Zheng was willing to pay for a meal, it must be something important. After 3 rounds of wine, Wei Zheng approached Chang Yaojin with a red face. Brother Yaojin, I want to ask you something. Here it comes. It's finally here. Everyone couldn't help but pricked up their ears and listened quietly. Last night, I heard the emperor praising the little brother named Zhang Feng. I also know that brother Yaojin and Zhang's son accompanied the emperor out of the palace and saw this person. I want to ask, who is this person? Understood. He wanted to ask about Zhang Feng. Chang Yaojin patted Wei Zheng on the shoulder. Hey! I thought it was something important. This is it. You've asked the right person. Speaking of which, shopkeeper Little Zhang is not only a man of striking appearance, he's also a genius. Can you guess how brother Little Zhang found out about the locust plague? How? Everyone could not help but be curious. With a wave of his hand, Cheng Yaojin picked up the wine jug and gulped down a few mouthfuls of wine. He smacked his lips and said, "Brother Little Zhang guessed. TCH. I say, Blackie, can't you come up with something more reliable? I've always been curious. How did a small shopkeeper find out about the news after it was sealed?" Feng Xianling asked as he stroked his white beard. "We only found out about this after paying a huge price." "How did he find out about it? Could it be that he's proficient in divination?" "Wrong." Cheng Yaojin was in high spirits. It was rare for him to be so pretentious. "About that. It was a long story. You didn't see the scene at that time." Shopkeeper Zhang Jr.'s mouth. TSK. "Stop clucking and spit it out." Seeing Cheng Yaojin pick up the wine jug and gulp it down, Wei Zheng snatched it from him. Cheng Yaojin smacked his lips and shook his head. Chapter 39. Everyone was aghast again. Is this all from observation? How can he observe? This place is more than thousands of miles away from Longyu Dao, Tuyuhun, and Tubo. Can he really fly? Even a master of feng shui or a powerful figure from the Ministry of Agriculture can't deduce all this just from looking at the world. Can they? There's something fishy about this matter. Old Hay. He does have a lot of things that we may not know about, but can you tell us in detail what you talked about that day? Feng Xuanling's face was solemn. Fine. As long as you give me 3 more jars of wine, I promise to tell you everything I know. Cheng Yaojin took the opportunity to say. Wei Zheng's face darkened. This is my money. But Wei Zheng gritted his teeth and closed his eyes. He waved his hand and ordered 10 jars of wine. After Cheng Yaojin took a big gulp of wine, he narrated everything from when he first entered the house to when he finally left. He either added some details or cut out a large part of the story and narrated it at length. The current emperor? He's the emperor of all ages. Chang'an City and Longyu Dao's specialty products have sharply decreased. Longyu Dao's people suddenly surged in Chang'an City. Of course, there's also the current situation of the Tang dynasty and the surrounding areas. What will happen if there's a war? So on and so forth. He narrated everything word for word. And when he finished his last word, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. Everyone in the hall had their mouths wide open as they stared at Cheng Yaojin, dumbfounded. Damn, he's really a talent. God bless the Tang dynasty. God bless the Tang dynasty. But everyone couldn't understand at this time. Why would such a peerless genius be willing to be a small shopkeeper in the marketplace? Everyone was dumbfounded. Their worldview was ruined. Does this mean that there are as many talents as dogs in the Tang dynasty? Or could it be that this kind of peerless genius all had the quirks of a hermit? No matter what, at this moment, from the mouth of the emperor and the words of the crowd, coupled with Cheng Yaojin's confession, everyone finally had a clear understanding of Zhang Feng's situation. Or even, at this time, everyone had an urge to go to the tavern to find out what was going on. But Cheng Yaojin was not stupid. He was also envious of such a talent. How could he reveal this person's detailed address? Moreover, how could he not know that these old fellows already had the heart to cherish talent? None of them were fools. Such a talent would definitely soar one day. But if he took him under his wing first, then, being the shopkeeper of a small tavern, wasn't that bullying? Wasn't this a waste of talent? Wouldn't it be better for him to work in any department? With this thought in mind, Wei Zheng looked around. More than a dozen jars of wine had already been emptied. At this time, he was a little complacent. Although he drank good wine with the emperor last night, it was said that Zhang Feng brewed it himself. However, there were too few of them. And he drank with the emperor. Who could taste it in detail? At this time, Wei Zheng smacked his lips twice. All of a sudden, Du Ruhui asked lightly, Old Wei, after saying so much, it's time to explain your matter, right? Why did the emperor issue such an edict in the morning court today? And your expression at that time seemed to indicate that you had already heard about it, right? Also, did the emperor go to your mansion last night? Yesterday, the emperor went to the tavern for a few hours. The emperor should have told you about it, right? Zhongsun Wuji said slowly. That's right. Last night at nightfall, His Majesty did go to my residence. But do you know what His Majesty said in my residence last night? Except for my matter. What matter? Last night, the Emperor seemed to be in a good mood at Jingfeng's sect. Did the shopkeeper say something to the Emperor last night? Yes. But you're wrong. Wei Zhang smacked his lips and said mysteriously. Last night, the Emperor took out something. That thing is so valuable that even the Emperor regards it as a treasure. And he intends to keep it as an heirloom. Hiss! Everyone could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. This time, they were really shocked. A heirloom? What could it be? And it was from a shopkeeper? Suddenly, Zhongsun Wuji slapped his thigh and said, Could it be that bamboo tube? I remember. Last night. Do you remember the bamboo tube in the Emperor's hand? The one that never left his side? God! I remember it too. Could it be that the thing in the bamboo tube was given to the Emperor by Zhang Feng? Everyone finally recalled the scene they had seen at Scenic Wind Sect last night. Seeing this, Wei Zheng said. He said again without stopping until he was shocked. That's right. That's it. Take a guess, what do you think is inside? How could anyone guess it? They couldn't help but feel anxious. What is it? Tell us quickly. I'm so anxious. Old Wei, tell us quickly. Wei Zhang straightened his back and said mysteriously, That is a piece of calligraphy that the Emperor asked Zhang Feng for. Boom. Chapter 40. A Treasure of Calligraphy. And it was a treasure of calligraphy requested by the Emperor. How was that possible? The Emperor was indeed obsessed with treasures of calligraphy. So was everyone else. However, for a small shopkeeper to be able to talk about such a major event, it could only mean that he was indeed very talented. But it was not to the extent that his calligraphy could surpass all the current calligraphy masters, right? Everyone did not know that before. But now, after everyone gathered together, they started to talk about the whole matter, making Zhang Feng more and more mysterious. Everyone still could not understand. What kind of treasure of calligraphy did Zhang Feng have? Feng Xianling, who loved treasures of calligraphy, could not help but grab Wei Zheng's hand and said excitedly, Old Wei, tell us, what kind of treasure of calligraphy is it? Wei Zhang felt extremely comfortable at this moment. He finally felt the state where everyone longed for him. Although this treasure of calligraphy is not the work of any master, nor is it the descendant of any famous master, nor is it exquisitely mounted, nor does it have a gorgeous title, the content of this treasure of calligraphy is priceless. Even I was shocked for a long time after seeing this treasure of calligraphy for the first time. In fact, it is just a piece of ordinary calligraphy, just like the people who sell couplets on the street. Even the paper is the kind that is commonly seen in the market. But, the content of this calligraphy. Don't beat around the bush, just say it. Say it. Today's meal is on me. Son, serve the wine and dishes. Serve the dishes. Hearing that, Wei Zheng's eyes lit up and he said lightly, Thank you, Brother Zhongsun. Since you want to serve, let's just serve the best. Zhongsun Wuji's face darkened when he heard that. But there was nothing he could do. Who asked Wei Zheng to be so good at seducing people? A moment later, the messy table was completely replaced with the best dishes. At this moment, Wei Zheng held the wine glass and said while shaking his head, The content of this calligraphy is very short, but you all remember it. I guarantee that all of you will be treated as family heirlooms. His Majesty also said last night that he would copy it and pass it on to everyone in the near future. Wei Zheng no longer procrastinated and explained the contents of the calligraphy in its entirety. Especially the last word, beg. Wei Zheng finally couldn't hold back his laughter and said, I'm really curious about the Emperor's expression when he saw these words yesterday. As the ruler of a country, he actually used the word beg. If others were to see this, wouldn't he become a laughingstock? But this time, I'm on the Emperor's side. This piece of calligraphy. What do you all think? Is it suitable to be a family heirloom? Family heirloom? Was it suitable? F***CK. It was enough to serve as a warning to the world. Everyone was shocked once again. Although no one saw the words, They could guess the meaning of the words from Wei Zheng's description. At this moment, Wei Zheng smiled emotionally. F***CK. Do you know that the emperor almost dismissed me yesterday? Zhang Sun Wuji sighed and said, We all know. The whole Chang'an city knows about what happened in the morning court yesterday. Do you think we don't know? We planned to go to you last night and ask you to give in or beg the empress, but we saw the emperor go to your mansion. Not only that, we also saw what happened at the gate of your mansion. So, we finally felt relieved. But why did the emperor change his mind? Everyone couldn't help but be more curious. A piece of calligraphy. Although they could see some things, it was not the key to the emperor's change of mind. It was impossible to say that the emperor suddenly changed his mind. Everyone was a wily old fox. Who didn't know the emperor's temper? However, since Zhang Feng appeared, they increasingly couldn't understand Li Shimin. Yes, you're right. This is not the key to the emperor's change of mind. It was Zhang Feng that made the emperor change his mind. His words allowed His Majesty to open up a new path of speech for the first time. Although the emperor did say that he wanted to open the way to the public, the effect was not good. But, you saw this morning that the emperor actually announced this in the political announcement hall. What does this mean? This means that the emperor has made up his mind to open the way to the public. The reason for this is that Wei Zheng's expression turned solemn. He said with a kind of solemnity and respect that he had never shown before. Using bronze as a mirror, correct the clothes. Using people as a mirror, understand the gains and losses. Using history as a mirror, understand the rise and fall. When Wei Zheng's voice fell, in everyone's mind, it was like thousands of gongs were ringing at the same time. It madly stirred up monstrous waves. Every word, every sentence, made everyone's heart unable to calm down for a long time. At this time, Wei Zheng's feeling was getting stronger and stronger. He was eager to see Zhang Feng and take Zhang Feng as his subordinate. In the future, the secretarial department would definitely become the first department in the Tang dynasty because of Zhang Feng. And he also believed that if Zhang Feng could come to the secretarial department, then Wei Zheng couldn't help but reveal his ultimate purpose. Qing Weizi, where is brother Zhang Feng? How could everyone not know Wei Zheng's plan? Seeing his foxtail raised, everyone hurriedly covered Cheng Yaojin's mouth and said eagerly, I don't know. No comment. Goodbye. Chapter 41. At this time, just as everyone was scrambling to find Zhang Feng, a voice rang out. Zhang Feng was bored out of his mind. He sat in the shop and wondered if he should do something in the future. Now, the Tang dynasty had just entered the beginning of the Zhenguan rule, and this year was also the most critical year. If this year, the Tang dynasty could solve the drought and the locust plague in a short time, then the Tang dynasty was destined to enter the stage of skyrocketing. The reason why he told Lao Li about the locust plague and the surrounding situation was that, on the one hand, he was too damn lonely. He could brag to someone he liked. More importantly, as he said before, if he could attract Li Shimin's attention, when the time came, his system would be activated, and it would really be like adding wings to a tiger. However, after his observation in the past few days, it seemed, except that after that night, this matter slowly seemed to be suppressed. He thought about it. Zhang Feng also felt relieved. After all, Lao Li's strength was limited. Although he didn't know how his family business was, it was certainly not comparable to the government in Chang'an City. People nowadays paid attention to borrowing ancient books, combining the methods recorded in ancient books to deal with the drought and locust plague. His method was a modern thing. How could there be such a thing in history? Even if there was, it was after the middle of the Tang dynasty. Alas, there is still a long way to go. At the thought of this, Zhang Feng couldn't help but sigh. This damn system. If it weren't for this system, he would have soared to the top by now. With the help of this locust plague and Li Shimin's unprecedented announcement to the world today, he really got rid of the gap between him and Wei Zheng. This made Zhang Feng a little confused about Lao Li. You could say that he was a businessman. But this guy was always on the verge of death, constantly testing and rubbing against each other. He always asked about things that would cost him his life. Now, this matter was brought to the top again? Zhang Feng was a little doubtful. But he wasn't sure if Li Shimin had figured it out himself. After all, Beside Li Shimin, in addition to Feng Xianling and Du Ruhui, there was also Wei Zhang, the three major strategists, the think tank. Behind him, there was also Empress Zhang's son who left a strong mark in the history books. Although this person was a woman and was usually very kind, she was a woman. But who would have thought that most of Li Shimin's decisions were the result of discussions with Empress Zhang's son at night? Li Shimin was able to understand and put Wei Zhang in an important position. Zhang Feng didn't have anything to do with Lao Li at all. In his eyes, these two people were the kind of existence where one was in the sky and the other was in the water,